Okay, I think I'm gonna just let this go in the background. I was just like, wait a minute. What am I gonna have going while we're chatting Spiders-Man? And then I thought, why not the #1 most patrician Spider-Man game? I really hope it lets me artificially... Oh, here we go. Wait. Input rate. No. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay. This will just be some nice... There we go. I think it needs to be even quieter than that. I don't want it to cover up Bruce at all. That would be terrible, so let's just drop it down there. I know that next time I ever emulate anything, I'm going to be really confused when I'm trying to talk. All right, so now the bigger problem, which is trying to get into this Discord call and praying to God that my new mic setup works. So I'm going to jump in on a call with Bruce here. I don't know if we're doing it over voice or not, but okay. Bruce is currently muted. Oh, you still haven't seen it? I think we'll have a warning. Maybe we can do some non-spoiler talk first. But it's going to be hard for me, at least, to talk about the things that I liked and disliked about the movie.
Like Daredevil? The one with Ben Affleck?
Ben Affleck's Daredevil?
So loud.
Am I loud?
I'm turning you down, but it was just funny.
Oh, I'm sorry. I changed my mic setup. Hopefully I sound better, but...
Yeah, you sound great. I just turned you down a little bit in Discord.
Okay. That's what Daredevil hears. He has super hearing, so whenever anyone talks, it's thunderously loud. I actually recently saw Daredevil, the director's cut. And you can't argue with the dramatic pacing of having Daredevil in mortal peril at the beginning, grabbing the audience in from the drop. We gotta know what happens to Daredevil. Is he gonna make it? Is he not? Who knows?
Well, does he though?
Yeah, he does. He does.
Oh, because the whole movie has to make sure that he makes it, right? Because otherwise it wouldn't be a 2-hour film about Daredevil.
That's true. Actually, speaking of that too, I think I saw Elektra before I saw Daredevil, which let me tell you was a little confusing.
Yeah, what the fuck? Really?
Yeah, because that was like I wanted to see bad superhero movies, so that's what I started with.
I'll send you a squad stream invite, but I don't know if it's really gonna make a difference. People are asking, and I was like, I'll do it, but.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have an old Spider-Man Super Nintendo game rolling on my stream, so.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I've just got movie trailers for No Way Home and like Spider-Verse and stuff going online.
Nice.
And
the pre-MCU superhero scene was really something, huh? Have you seen Catwoman?
I never saw one of the world's worst movies. I never did.
It's definitely one of the world's worst movies. What's astounding? I saw Batman Returns again recently, and I really, really liked it. I mean, Batman Returns is phenomenal, but what's crazy is like Batman Returns does a better job and a more respectful job with Catwoman than an entire movie dedicated to Catwoman.
Well, I don't. That doesn't sound wrong. I mean, it won a bunch of Razzies, so.
Yeah, as I recall, the movie was actually about makeup. Like the movie was straight up girls fighting about makeup. That was the motivation of it. Yeah.
Really?
There's like a makeup firm that had some deep dark secrets, and I think I can't remember what Catwoman's involvement in the movie was. She got flushed down with some like toxic makeup chemicals, and then a bunch of cats found her, and then she turned into Catwoman. Yeah. Pretty rad.
That sounds amazing. I sent you a squad stream.
Oh yeah. Let me click on it.
It's there. It's out there. There we go. All right, the squad stream's up. If you guys want to watch both of us do this thing, but you're gonna be able to hear us either way. So, I promised my stream I wouldn't do spoilers at least for the first 15-20 minutes or so.
All right, cool. I can get away without that, I think.
Yeah, no spoilers. Just like I just wanted to find out what you were feeling about this film, because I know how I felt about it, obviously, but I have kind of a history of watching all the Spider-Man films.
Yeah.
And so even if I had watched this film and was like, I didn't like it or I did like it or whatever. I have a history of Spider-Man. I don't know if you do. And so I was curious to hear what you thought of it, what your history with Spider-Man is, etc.
I actually have a pretty extensive history of Spider-Man. I would say Spider-Man has for a long time been my favorite superhero.
Oh wow, I didn't know that about you.
I mean, I don't talk about it that much, mostly because like the second, I don't know, there's people who are far bigger fans than I am. I'm discovering that about nearly everything, you know? I was like,
well, of course, yeah.
Here are the things I like 8-year-old me. I was like, I like Spider-Man and Star Trek and Star Wars, and I probably like those more than anyone else. And then I like turned 18 and found out that wasn't the case at all. So it's just something that's kind of, you know, it's always been there. But I had a Spider-Man poster on my bedroom door. I guess it kind of started with like the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. But I got from that into reading comics and stuff. So I read Amazing Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man through most of the 90s and into the early 2000s, which there were some really good runs in there. Mostly when J. Michael Straczynski took over the writing. So those are all honestly some of my favorite comic arcs. Not to say that I'm a comic book scholar either. But yeah, I've always really liked Spider-Man. I've liked most of the movies, but they've been kind of all over the map.
They really have.
Yeah,
like by a lot. Yeah.
Which, you know, the source material's been everywhere too, so it's not uncommon. So yeah, I'm a fan. Yeah.
Okay.
I will say the things that appeal to me about Spider-Man in general haven't really been present in the Tom Holland run of Spider-Man movies.
What appeals to you about Spider-Man?
He's you know, it's friendly neighborhood kind of thing. The fact that he's just a dude in a cloth suit really appealed to me, and it makes him more vulnerable, more human, I guess. The fact that Spider-Man stories are equal parts human drama in addition to superhero drama, and the fact that the two interchange. Like, you can have something like Superman who barely has a human life. Like, he just has a job out of like a human curiosity, basically. Somebody's going to take offense to that, but you know, Bruce Wayne is a billionaire. He doesn't have to work, but he does, and he's also mega smart for some reason. But Spider-Man like has
smart.
Yeah, that's true. That's always a thing, right? There's some universal traits that make them super appealing. But Spider-Man had to work shitty jobs. He had to go to school, and he had to try to
Mm-hmm.
So there's something about that was always a little more approachable to me. The challenge of trying to have a normal life while also trying to be super, just basically trying to maintain a certain code of living and a code of ethics in a world that makes that very challenging. Or a world that forces you to, and this is kind of getting into some of the themes of the film, a world that forces you sometimes to either sacrifice yourself or your time to do the right thing, or to make very uncomfortable decisions about when you're allowed to do something for yourself.
That was exactly what No Way Home addressed, right off the top, which is, so that's, because I mean, I know it sounds like you skewed more towards the Tobey Maguires or the Andrew Garfields, because they didn't really have any other cinematic universe to pull from, and so they had to establish their own Spider-Man. But I could be wrong.
I mean, the Tobey Maguire ones, I feel like that's just Sam Raimi. Really, it's Sam Raimi filmmaking.
It is. It totally is. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, Spider-Man 1 is a very Raimi film. 3 is like, in a bad way, a very Raimi film. 2 is like a legitimately good film. 2 was the only, like, for a long time, it was my favorite superhero movie. And then the Garfield ones, for better or worse, were a lot more comic book accurate. I appreciated that about Amazing Spider-Man 2. It really did feel like a comic book Spider-Man story. You know, that doesn't make it a good story, but it certainly made it feel a lot more accurate than some of the other takes. But then, yeah, you get into the MCU, and Spider-Man's got a nano suit, and they try to inject some of that real life stuff in there. But mostly, I thought it was an interesting adaptation of like Spider-Man themes and Spider-Man stories to the MCU and to like kind of a younger, newer audience that had different things to worry about. So I thought that was neat too.
Yeah, and I think since we're jumping, I mean, this is the third of the trilogy of the Tom Holland Spider-Mans, and No Way Home addresses the stuff that you were liking about Spider-Man, which is like him trying to live a normal life, him trying to have a girlfriend, trying to go to college, etc., etc. And so it uses the MCU to, I guess, to solve that problem for him rather than him addressing it on his own. And I look, I'll come out and say it about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I was just reading something from Simon Kinberg, who produced the X-Men films, and he was like, Kevin Feige, basically, he said Kevin Feige is the maybe the best producer of all time. Like he might be the greatest movie producer that has ever worked, and he's not wrong, especially from a commercial standpoint.
Yeah,
and I think the same thing about Feige, but it's not even about commercial. It's more about like the movies he's making, is they all have a pretty good standard of quality. They're not like, they're not obviously they're not gonna fucking break any boundaries, or they're not gonna be they're not gonna be the greatest films in the world, but they're certainly better than a lot of films I watch. So I'm happy to dive into the MCU, especially for a movie that I feel is going to give me a lot of other characters. Like I love seeing Doctor Strange, and I love seeing Happy Hogan, and all those characters in there. So it's exciting for me. And again, without spoiling. So, but I don't know if that's how you feel about it, because I don't know. You kind of bounce in and out of the MCU. You're sort of like, I like it. I kind of don't like it. I don't like it. I like it. I've never really heard you commit to it either way.
I mean, I was enjoying it just for the scale of what was being done. Kind of like you were saying about Feige and his direction. It was really exciting to see, because to my knowledge, it never really been done before. Something like Marvel Cinematic Universe culminated something like Endgame was really something. Yeah. Just the cinematic scale of it was a treat to behold. But much like the cyclical nature of comics, once you wrap up a certain storyline, you kind of have to keep going. So I was kind of used to the cycle of escalation and de-escalation, and I was curious how they were going to try to build it back up again. It doesn't seem like that's really kicked in yet. I guess they're alluding to Galactus with Eternals and stuff like that. But
I think so. Yeah, I don't know though. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess I have yet to be captivated by anything post Endgame, mostly because the pyramids have been built. I don't necessarily need to see the next pyramid get built. So maybe that's a weird way to say it, but I was into it just to see how they executed it. But I don't know that individual movies would have good moments. I'm trying to think of MCU films that. I mean, there's so many. Jeez.
I mean, like a lot of people point at Thor Ragnarok as one of the best. A lot of people pointed at Black Panther as one of the best as well. And I don't know if you thought that. I thought Thor Ragnarok was amazing.
They were fun rides, but I feel like MCU movies don't really say anything. Not that they have to, but those are the kinds of movies that I like the most.
Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah, Guardian, I guess the message was friendship. Friendship is the ultimate power in the universe or something. I
mean, a lot of people were saying it was like the Star Wars of the MCU, and they established a bunch of characters that you never had seen or heard about, and then you immediately cared about. Again, I thought so. That's the way I felt about it, but I don't know. That's how you felt.
They were charming. It was a charming film, but I don't know. I like movies that give me a kind of deep thought to chew on and play with. And a lot of the Marvel movies don't do that because they're not trying to. I'm not trying to say this as a knock against them. This is why they don't really occupy a whole lot of space in my mind. It's because they're fun stories that have a very palatable and pleasing sort of message, but the message is ultimately pretty thin and doesn't really hold up to a lot of scrutiny or thought because they're hero stories. So yeah, that's kind of my relationship with them. Is any movie that's as expensive as a lot of the Marvel movies are is always going to be like a good time to watch. I mean, I like expensive movies that are bad, just because. Yeah. I mean, I like Transformers movies. Not to draw a direct comparison, but that's about where they sit in my mind. It's like, this is a big, dumb, fun ride, and
it's a good way to think about it. Yeah.
But once you've been on a roller coaster 8 times, you kind of know the roller coaster.
Yeah, my opinion is that is honestly not at all the way I feel about it. Transformers is absolutely big and dumb. I think you're totally right about that. But the big and dumb starts to really make me bored when I have characters I don't care about. So that's what happens in every Transformers film.
Yeah.
Is like an hour into it, I'm like, why the fuck do I care about what Shia LaBeouf is doing? Like, and with MCU films, like somebody brought out Winter Soldier, which I think absolutely has something to say. And Winter Soldier, like, really made me care about what happens with Captain America and how he's going to continue to uphold his ideals when he's put into these horrible situations. Same with Civil War. So I love Captain America. So I was always like, there's no way. How is this movie going to continue to, or this MCU going to continue to make him feel and do the same things that he's holding to his same ideals, but then also have to fight his friends.
So it's interesting you bring up Civil War, because I think I had high hopes for that movie, and Winter Soldier as well. I wanted Captain America to like not be right for one time, and see how he dealt with it. Like, I would love in Civil War for him to actually have moments of doubt, or to have moments where he realizes he did something wrong because of his zealotry.
I think he did. I think he does. I actually do. I really think he does go through that. I don't. It's because a lot of people went through that film watching it being like, no, Iron Man's correct here.
But he wasn't. Captain America, the movie basically said he wasn't. The movie told you that Captain America's right. Right? Did I misinterpreted it.
Well, at the end of it, Civil War, Captain America's basically in exile.
Yeah, but so he's still right, though.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, like, to me, I think, Lawrence, probably you and I have similar morals.
Yeah, I would say so.
Because I've talked to people at length about Tony and the way he dealt with it, and like, people have good points about what Tony Stark was doing in that film. And even now when I watch Civil War, I'm like, man, like, the shit he's saying is not always wrong. So the filmmakers do definitely seem more sympathetic to Captain America, which makes sense because they made Captain America films before they ever made Civil War. The Russo brothers did. Mm-hmm. So they've always sort of focused on him. But I don't know. It's just but those are interesting debates to have. But I know what you're saying, Lawrence, because I felt the same way. I just don't know if I know that everybody didn't feel that same way. So
I guess in context too, Spider-Man's role in like the comic book Civil War was gnarly and made Iron Man even more of a questionable asshole.
Because he went and got this kid.
Yeah, he basically made a kid the poster child for, revealing his identity. I think, and again, in No Way Home, that's how they kind of put that plot point in, which was really smart, I thought. But I mean, that was the actual implementation of it. Instead of just Captain America and Iron Man having one really cool fight at the end of the movie, and that sort of settling the issue. I guess in canon it didn't. Captain America was a war criminal until a Purple Man showed up.
Purple Man, right? They needed him.
Yeah. Which, in a way, is very America, or at least how we think we like to see ourselves. We're always right, and nobody wants us around until something bad happens. Then we got to swoop in and be blonde and beat everybody up. But
that's funny.
But yeah, I guess I was waiting / hoping, especially in context of, well, maybe where the United States was, to actually have the movie sort of, I don't know, have Captain America actually be tested a little bit more than just being ironclad dedicated to his morals and then being right. Is kind of what my takeaway was, but maybe I judged it a little too surface level.
I just didn't. I was like, because I was like you, Lawrence. I was like, man, clearly Captain America's right. And then I had 20 people jump down my throat with a bunch of different points that I was like, those are valid. I didn't think about that. So it was an interesting discussion about Civil War, regardless. I don't know that No Way Home had any of those moral quandaries in them.
No. Well, it did, sort of.
It was other than hey, don't fuck with magic. Just deal with the things as they come. Don't try and don't, I guess, that's not even, don't have regret. That's the way it feels to me, because obviously there's magic involved. So for me, it's instead don't regret it, but just deal with deal with those problems as a normal human being would, rather than relying on things that you can't control. I don't know.
Man, I took something else very different and much more troubling from No Way Home. So,
good.
Yeah, I'll try to avoid spoilers, but so you're right. The kind of the first act is well, no, I can't get into those details yet. So let me think. Thematically, you're right. It was like, can a hero have it all? You know, can they have a personal life? Can they fight crime? And that is kind of core to most Spider-Man tales, is being caught in between doing hero stuff and doing his personal life stuff. I think in a greater way, it also provides commentary. What I liked is it kind of provides commentary on, you know, the typical hero-villain relationship. The things where I found troubling, well, I'll get into that later.
You can talk about the villains, because I know the other point I think you're going to talk about, which is and correct me if I'm wrong, but him trying to cure the villains rather than kill them.
Yeah. The way that No Way Home addresses death, I kind of get where they're going, and that's that is actually a really interesting chestnut to bite off.
I agree, yeah.
Unlike the themes of the movie, or rather, unlike the story of the movie, the themes of the movie did try to have it all. They tried to present this nuanced message that I think sabotaged itself by the actions of its characters.
Okay.
But to go into more of that, I think I'd have to talk about spoilers.
Got it. Yeah, just a few more minutes. And we can, if your chat and my chat are all right with it, we can just dive in. But I just wanted to make sure that no one clicked on the live notification, jumped in and was immediately got spoiled.
Oh, gotcha.
I was worried about that. But if you guys want to talk about spoilers, chat, I'm happy to. It looks like I think most people. What about your chat, Lawrence?
I mean, I have spoiler stuff. I kind of warned people that there might be spoilers before we started, and then I have spoilers in my title. So I think most people are aware that at some point we're gonna get spoilery. But if not, here's your spoiler warning.
Yeah,
we're down. I've been ready. Spoil me, daddy. All right.
All right, great. Good, yeah, because I just put it in my title as well. This is your last warning in my chat. Just make sure. Please click out if you don't want spoilers. This will get super spoilery. All right, Lawrence, hit me with what you were talking about.
Okay, all right. There's the things that I really liked is sort of revisiting past hero tales, and in a 2020 lens on it, basically being like, you know what, it's not okay for a hero to beat a villain to death. Maybe there is a better maybe there's a better solution. Although I take there's a bit of, I don't know, most Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, they ended up killing themselves. He just didn't stop it from happening, which is another kind of weird Spider-Man thing. I mean, and honestly, the thing that I liked about all the Raimi Spider-Mans is Spider-Man lost most of the fights he was in, which is also a very Spider-Man thing.
He got beat to hell, and that happened all the time in the comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Spider-Man is he's not strong. He typically has to outthink, and now I'm remembering it. In Spider-Man 3, he just basically convinced Sandman to go away, which is another issue with No Way Home is that Sandman's motivations made no sense, but whatever. There's five characters. They can be allowed to be a little sloppy. So I guess my greatest issue with the movie is that they make this whole point about how there's a better solution than death. Except, the characters that do die, that's okay, because they chose to do it. It's not okay if a hero beats a villain, because that's bad. But if a sacrificial person puts themselves in harm's way and dies, that's okay, and we should all celebrate that. That's what kind of really bothered me about the movie, is that it seemed to say that it's the role of a villain, it's the role of a hero to self-sacrifice for the world in silence forever. That's kind of where the movie ended. That's the role of Spider-Man. He just gets ground up by the world, and he's not allowed to have a girlfriend, and he's not allowed to have friends. He's not allowed to have anyone, because that's just who he is, and that's his role. And if he did have anyone, it would just hurt them too. So that, it sets up a good hero tale, but gosh, is that not a good message. And maybe I shouldn't fret about messages, because it's just a superhero movie, but...
Well, Lawrence, I mean, it's interesting. Why do you say it's not a good message?
Because I guess And I'm glad you asked, actually, because I've been thinking about this a lot. I think I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder about that. I think I've acted in that way for a long time, and it's thoroughly unsustainable. In my life, I've done a lot of what I consider volunteering time or effort on behalf of others. And there's this, like, the movie also kind of implies if you just care enough and throw enough emotion at somebody that you can change them. And boy, is that not the case either. There are people in this world that will just absorb every last ounce of goodness you can give to them and not care. And again, it's a superhero movie, so maybe I'm judging it way too harshly and on the wrong standards. But it did kind of bug me how, like, and again, for spoilers, sorry, like May is kind of teed up as the sacrifice that makes this Spider-Man understand great power and great responsibility. Why is it okay? Why are we cool that May died on her terms as a sacrifice, but we're not okay with Green Goblin dying? Why is his life more important? Well, because he's like sick, I guess.
Because May knew, because May volunteered.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It has to do with volition, I guess.
It has to do with volition, exactly.
So what about Electro? He was a prick. He was just a prick. He was just a sad prick. That's it. There's nothing else to his character, and that is a lot of Spider-Man villains. It's the difference between people that have power and understand the responsibility and people that have power and don't. Or that people that had a father figure like Uncle Ben to teach them the difference and people that didn't. So
I thought what you're saying, because it makes total sense to me, Lawrence, what you're saying. And it's interesting that you think that way, because for me the line that has just been through every single Spider-Man film: with great power comes great responsibility. So to me, the responsibility is he has to maintain this secret identity, or else people around him will die. And that goes with Batman. That goes with a lot of different heroes, not just Spider-Man. So I thought that was why he was, like, punished in quotes at the end of the film. And so I hear what you're saying, and that was what I took from it, if that makes sense.
So, but there are characters who have great power and don't have great responsibility. So it's like the people who understand responsibility have to be like 20 times as responsible to make up for the people who aren't. Is that the idea?
Interesting. That's a really interesting question. So my first answer to that is Tony Stark. And Tony Stark's a dick. And he has no responsibility because he's revealed himself to the world, but he's also kind of a selfish prick. And he always was. So yes, and truthfully at the very end, right, he sacrificed himself, obviously. But I'd say probably most of us would say, well, he's kind of a dick. So he really never had to sacrifice anything. I mean, he gets drunk in Iron Man 2 and fucks up his house with his suits and stuff. So it's like, he clearly has no responsibility to that. Whereas Spider-Man does, because he doesn't, want MJ to die. He doesn't want May to die, et cetera, et cetera. And he has to, and that's the whole point of the with great power comes great responsibility line. Now, that's just what I'm taking from it. I'm not saying that there is a correct interpretation of it. So. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I think. But whatever. I mean, again, I'm interested to hear your point of view, because that's why I asked.
I guess I never remember there being a plot point. Like, there are throwaway scenes, sure, but like when Spider-Man doesn't have responsibility, people die. When Iron Man doesn't have responsibility, he gets a scratch on his car. So
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, the screws are put to Spider-Man a lot more often because that is kind of core to most of the narratives. I guess that's just what kind of bugged me in the end, is that the movie was a bit sanctimonious in saying that life should be saved, but that didn't apply to the good people in the movie.
Here's something weird, and this is just going to stretch out into real life. Is like you were saying, well, Tony never had to suffer any consequences, but Spider-Man always does. That's the way life is.
Yeah.
It's like you see fucking, billionaires out there doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
And then you're at home banging out an honest living, making sure that you're doing the right thing all the time. It's the
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. So, and that's kind of what, I had a fun time because the cameos were fun, and I thought the final, I don't know, the final fight was interesting because the Statue of Liberty didn't get a scratch on it, because of course it didn't. But
yeah, I know.
And the idea of like the shield falling was interesting because that could mean something. But the takeaway is that that the heroes of the world, kind of like Aunt May, really quietly and thanklessly sacrifice themselves for the good of everyone else, and that's just how it is. And I'm like, damn, man, that sucks. That's actually a pretty realistic but weirdly downer take. Is that this is just how it is?
Yeah, I kind of agree. You know, I not looking at it from that point of view when I was watching the film. I saw it a couple times, but when Lawrence, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. It absolutely is true. And actually, to tack on to your point, I actually thought Marvel, the MCU, was making a commentary on the MCU versus the Spider-Mans from the past, because they were like, look, before the good guys would kill the bad guys, and our society and the MCU has evolved now, and we don't do that anymore. That was what I got from it. Is like the MCU is sort of honestly lauding itself,
being more progressive,
and being like, look, we want to cure the bad guys rather than actually kill them, because that's what our society has gotten to now. And me personally, I am not necessarily that way. Like, I kept thinking back to Man of Steel, where in Man of Steel, Superman has to fight Zod, and at the very end of the film, he's like sitting there with Zod in a fucking headlock, and Zod won't stop, and he's like shouting and basically crying, and he snaps his neck because he doesn't want to do it, because Superman knows that's like, he doesn't want to do it, but he has to do it because otherwise Zod will not stop. And so for me, when like, if Spider-Man's gonna kill a crazy dude like Green Goblin, I mean, yeah, Green Goblin's killed a bunch of people and like caused a lot of chaos, and I think it's great that we're trying to cure him, but he's done a lot of terrible shit, you know, like, I don't know. So
yeah, the notion that like every villain is just someone who needs like a warm hug is, I thought, a little weird. I did. Yeah. I think, Bruce, to what you said about kind of showing that times have changed and that our superhero tales are a little more compassionate now. There was that one line, like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man didn't have a whole lot of lines. They kind of tried to make him a kind of elderly, wizened, sort of older Luke Skywalker type character, where he just kind of shows up and is quiet and reserved and whatever. I thought that was fun. Yeah. Like having a vision of like a late 30s Spider-Man, which shows up in the comics sometimes. I actually like the older Spider-Man quite a bit over the younger Spider-Man. But there was a line that he said where he's like, I'm trying to do better. And I was like, okay. In that way, the movie kind of acknowledges that he's admitting that the way he treated things in the past wasn't ideal.
Right.
So I thought that was neat, and that was tonally consistent. But
yeah. I'm seeing my chat saying, to be fair, Green Goblin had split personality disorder and Zod didn't. Yeah, absolutely. But the Lizard didn't.
Yeah.
And Electro didn't, like, to Lawrence's point. They were just dicks.
Yeah, Electro was just a dweeb who got power. He was a downtrodden. He was the Spider-Man archetype. Like, those are the best Spider-Man villains because it is the hero, but reversed. So he was just a nobody who got power and suddenly felt important, but never had someone die on his hands that he cared about. Yeah. So in that way, you have like a really good foil relationship where Spider-Man sees himself in somebody else, tries calling out to them, tries like reaching them to whatever degree they can. But yeah, there's people who just won't listen to reason. Yeah, I think it's fun, and I left the movie feeling pretty good, but the more I thought about it, the more of a downer it kind of felt like.
Interesting. Well, I mean, it is kind of a downer ending. All of his friends forget about. I mean, honestly, everybody forgets about him. So he's now got to go live in a shitty. I mean, they show it. He walks into a garbage apartment with a terrible bed, and it looks like shit.
It ended up being a long-winded origin story, really, for like the Spider-Man that everyone knows. Is I guess he didn't have his formative loss, which it's part of the story, so whatever. But the idea that you have to lose somebody to develop a moral center is a little rough. But you know what? That's core Spider-Man lore, so whatever. But yeah, he got his cloth suit. He lost his nano suit. He's just a poor college kid, flipping around trying to solve crimes and be the best person he can be. I was like, okay, this, I like it. They ended up where most Spider-Man movies begin, which was neat.
Yeah.
Or most Spider-Man stories begin.
No, yeah, and I didn't. I liked that. It was. I kind of don't. I'm tired of seeing origin films of movies. You know, origin films we've seen 1,000 times. So it's like. So I thought that was a neat thing. I just really hope that they don't. In the next Spider-Man movie, please do not give me any. Or I don't want any origin for the next Spider-Man film. Because I know that they were going to make a Spider-Man 4. They've already talked about making another one with Tom Holland. I don't know that they will, but that's what they've talked about.
Well, it made a ton of money, right? It's like the biggest movie since pandemic.
And it made like $1 billion in 2 weekends or something. And I mean, with good reason. This to me was a Civil War style epic. They had put together a bunch of people, a bunch of stars that we all knew and loved in Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe. Like, there's a bunch of really amazing actors and characters that we have loved over the course of 20 years. So I thought they deserved that. I really did. And I thought they handled all the characters pretty well. I like you said, I had a little bit of a problem with Sandman where, honestly, Sandman kept saying the throwaway lines himself. There were times he would say, "I don't care." Like, yeah, he would, so anyway, which is fine. Didn't bother me.
Technically, he didn't do much in the final fight. He was just kind of there and chilling. So I think that's the thing, is he wasn't actually bought into fighting, but he did want to stay, which makes no sense. If he was trying to get back to his daughter, he'd want to go back to his dimension or whatever. And also, he didn't die in Spider-Man 3. He just exited the film. So his inclusion was odd. And I also kind of get that they were doing a soft Sinister Six, so Sandman kind of had to be there, or should have been there. That's fine. It's also an excuse to show off some like computer graphics, but people's motivations got a little muddied in there.
Let me ask you this, because this is just a plot point, and maybe the chat can help me too. So let's see here. So when Willem Dafoe, or I guess Green Goblin, and when Doc Ock showed up in the Tom Holland universe, they had just died.
Or they were about to, I think. Right? Because they all had a conversation where they were like fighting Spider-Man, and then all of a sudden they appeared there. So I think they were just it was like their last second of being alive or whatever. And so the idea was the second you send them back, they were just going to die immediately.
Because I was like, so did they cure them and then they go and die? Is that what happened? Yeah,
that's a good point. I didn't think about that, because they do go back to their realities.
I was so confused by this. I was like, why are they curing these people for them to get teleported to a dimension where they die? And I guess that is a nice thing to do, but also doesn't make any sense. Why not just kill them here? When they
go back to their reality, they're like, whoa, I'm good now. I'm good.
I know, I've been cured.
But the way that they all died in the respective films, that doesn't really play out, because like Doc Ock went down because he chose to. He was like, oh my God, what have I become? I need to let go of my dream and do what's best for everybody by letting go and sacrificing and stuff. Oh, they're now in branched realities. Awesome.
Oh, okay. So that's multiverse stuff. Got it. So it creates new timelines. Okay, all right. Well, that's better. At least they don't go and die. I did watch Loki, but it wasn't immediately clear. If they're variants, then I'm fine with that. But it wasn't, like I said, that was not immediately clear, having watched this film twice. So that's cool. And I think I asked Autumn about it I think she said kind of the same thing. She's like, there's one line where they say, well, when you go back, it'll be a different universe or whatever. And I was like, okay, so that's fine.
I mean, this is a step too far, but does that mean that Harry Osborn is still crazy in Spider-Man? No. Wait, because he would go back to Spider-Man 1, which means Norman Osborn would be sane again.
And I guess he wouldn't mess up James Franco's character.
I guess
if he's fine, right?
I don't remember a lot of the moment-to-moment plot details from Spider-Man 3. Did Harry Osborn inject himself with the Goblin Serum?
That's a great question.
When he got his sweet hoverboard?
I don't either. I've chosen to not remember. He did. Okay.
Jet-powered hoverboard.
My chat. Oh yes.
Oh,
I
it was a
remember
snowboard.
that.
That's right. Man, that was sick.
My chat is saying yes, he did inject himself with the serum.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe now that Norman is alive and not crazy, that won't happen.
Correct.
So that's
that
cool.
should help. That should help that branched reality that he goes back to.
And now Spider-Man will have a nice father figure. I thought that was really cute, by the way. The scene where like Norman Osborn and Peter are working together, and Norman like starts instinctively kind of fathering him again and taking and like joking, and you know, it's clear that they had chemistry from those few lines. I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, I mean, see, like people are saying, well, it's different timelines. Right, I know. I guess we just don't know yet. We truly do not.
Get Sam Raimi back. Get him back. Make
Well,
the Spider-Man 4.
Lawrence, I'm gonna blow your mind. You know that he is finishing up the direction of Doctor Strange 2, right?
Oh, that's right. He is doing that movie. Oh boy,
Yeah.
weird.
Because Scott Derrickson left Doctor Strange, so now Sam Raimi's finishing it.
Fucking weird, man.
So
You just gotta wait a couple decades. You can launch a turd of a movie, and just wait a little bit. Just give it some time.
Yeah. So that was again I'm not gonna. I don't. Crack Monkey keeps yelling about Matt Pat's video. That's great. Like I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch a 25-minute video analyzing what happens. I was just curious because. And that's the nice thing about Marvel, which may not be the case anymore, is that as we get into the multiverse stuff, it might get a little too complicated, and then I won't immediately know what's going on. Because generally in the MCU, I kind of have an idea. Like even with the time travel stuff in Endgame, it's like, well, you're along for the ride. It's like whatever, throw out the tiny little plot holes, and so far you'll be fine. But with this stuff, I was like, are they curing them to go back to where they died? And I think they have one line that throws it. That's like a throwaway line that says, no, they're going back to a branch reality.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine as long as they don't have multiple timelines and multiple realities happening at the same time, which is something the comics really like to do. But I think that's probably a bridge too far. I can't imagine Feige. Like, Feige seems to have a really good fix on what people want to see and what's entertaining. And I think that's too far down the comic book rabbit hole. Even for this, like, that's something that might happen 50 years from now if Marvel movies are still going and they need to surprise people.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that Marvel movies will still be going in 50 years, but
If they still earn money, probably.
if they still earn money, I truthfully I think that this whole thing's probably got another 5 to 6 left in it. I could be wrong, but that's the way it feels to me. I think they're oversaturate the whole deal. Even though I love them and I'll happily see the movies they're putting out, I think it's probably got another 5 to 6 years. I could be wrong, but that's just the way I think about it. Lawrence, did you cry when Toby and Andrew sat around Tom Holland and they all talked about who they lost?
Yeah, I mean, mostly because Andrew Garfield's performance, like he had the chin, the little
Killed it.
sad chin. Yeah, I mean, he was
Just
great
killed
as Sad Spider-Man. And actually, I always liked his portrayal of Spider-Man the best, even though he was in some of the movies that were less liked. I thought he, as the way he portrayed Spider-Man, was the most charming. And yeah, I'm really glad he got another chance to kind of show people what he could do.
I mean, Andrew Garfield is established an amazing actor, and he was just in bad films.
Yeah,
he was just in bad movies. He's just a terrific actor.
I saw you're absolutely right. He's a phenomenal talent. I saw him in there was a movie that was essentially like a biopic of the screen. I'm dropping the word. The person who made Rent, the playwright.
Oh yeah. It's Tick Tick Boom, I think.
Yes. And he was incredible in that. He's great. And it's unfortunate that he was in those movies that people really didn't like. But I thought he did a phenomenal job. I really, really liked you got a mix, basically. You kind of got all three main representations of Spider-Man in one movie, which was really fun. Got the like kind of sad down and out Spider-Man, the the really young, naive, and way too energetic Spider-Man, and then the kind of mid-30s, super mellowed out, much wiser Spider-Man with like back problems. I thought that was really, really cool.
That's the. I don't know if they took this page from it, but Spider-Verse was that when they brought in what's his name, Jake, the guy that does the voice for Peter Parker in Spider-Verse.
Yeah,
he's a New Girl. I was forgetting his name, Jake something. But regardless, that's what it was in Spider-Verse. He was like this kind of old, sort of fat Jake Johnson. Sort of fat, like he was having back issues and stuff like that, and it was great. It really was nice. It was nice to have like a veteran Spider-Man train a younger Spider-Man. So it was the same basic theme in this, but it was Tobey. I'll make no bones about it. I can't stand those Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films.
Even 2? You don't like 2?
No, 2 is good. 2 I enjoyed, and I went and saw them and like was like first in line for every single one of them. Spider-Man 1, I said for years was a bad film, and people were like, "This is great," and I was like, "What the fuck movie were they watching?" And then Spider-Man 2 absolutely was a good movie. I enjoyed that. I felt like that was maybe held up by Alfred Molina, possibly.
I've never honestly, like, I've always felt Tobey was a little wooden, which is weird because Sam Raimi is like, all the sensibility Raimi has is super, super goofy, and Molina has the perfect mustache twirl for 2. And I mean, God, fucking Willem Dafoe is just insanely
so
great,
good.
being crazy.
He's so good.
Yeah.
And it's like the vehicles that they were in, it just wasn't exactly what it should have been. And watching Willem Dafoe and watching Andrew Garfield and watching Tobey Maguire in a Kevin Feige produced MCU film, where now it's funny, we all watch these films and then everybody leaves and goes, "Oh, I want to see Andrew Garfield in a Spider-Man 3." It's like, no, you don't. You want to see Andrew Garfield in another MCU film, and that's okay.
Yeah,
that's all right. But like, we want Kevin Feige to produce, and we want a director that they picked. They want all the other shit. You don't want an amazing Spider-Man 3. Directed by who? I don't even know who directed the first
Mark
2.
Webb did this.
Was it Mark
one?
Webb? Ugh.
His name is because everyone's like, "Oh, somebody with the name Webb is directing Spider-Man."
Yeah, this is and I love this. Is my favorite thing I see a lot on. Sam Raimi had no creative control over Spider-Man 3. I've seen this so many times. People apologize. I really hope that one day that somebody apologizes for when I make bad content. I really do.
I mean, some people do, right? I've seen some subreddit posts that make up a narrative to explain a couple things.
That's pretty rare. I see that.
It's rare.
Well, I would love to see it.
I guess what's extra weird to me is have people not seen Sam Raimi's other movies?
I mean, they're all like that.
Yeah, they're largely. 2 is a wild exception in that it's very watchable. It has heart and soul and tells a meaningful story. 1 and 3 are much more Raimi style. So I came to those movies expecting them to be cheesy and weird. And by and large, they didn't disappoint. I mean, Bruce, we can thank Sam Raimi for the shot of Willem Dafoe just jamming his hands into like a sweet potato casserole. Where else are you going to see that?
I mean, you're right. Nowhere else but in a Sam Raimi film.
He did it. He did it.
And Norca said, "Go read Sam Raimi's tweets." You're spelling Sam Raimi wrong, first of all. Second of all, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, and this is something that I've learned over time, is just like, you just got to sort of accept it and be like. By the way, Sam Raimi had, I'd be very surprised if Sam Raimi had the least amount of creative control with Spider-Man 3, because Spider-Man 1 and 2 were huge billion-dollar films that made a fuck ton of money. So if anyone had any leverage, it'd probably be Sam Raimi for Spider-Man 3. I would be very surprised if that was the one movie they had decided, no, you know what, we're going to take it away from Sam Raimi. It's like, what?
I mean, I think people mostly lay it at the feet of, like, I guess it was Sony's insistence that there be 3 villains, that they have Venom in there.
They always say Avi Arad is the problem. They always say Avi Arad was the one that wanted Venom in it.
Do you think Avi Arad, though, do you think Avi Arad was responsible for the, like, dance sequence in Spider-Man 3? You think Sony came in there and was like, we need a hot jazz number where emo Toby, like, does a whole song and dance and then elbows Mary Jane to the ground? That's what we need in this film. I don't know. I think that was a Sam Raimi decision. He can own that one. Which I still laugh at it. He did like a hip thrust that blew a girl's hair back. That's a great shot too.
Yeah. Avi Arad, right. And by the way, just so you guys know, at the end of No Way Home, there is a very clearly delineated line in the credits that says, "Thank you so much to Avi Arad for believing in this vision." Blah blah blah. A bunch of fuck. They're all sucking his dick. So again, for me, I hope I make a really bad multi-million-dollar film and then a bunch of people apologize for me. That would be great.
What do you think Avi Arad did to get in the credits like that? Because that feels so much like he had to like cry and scream and send email. Like, there's no way anyone involved with No Way Home on their own volition was like, you know what? We should really just reserve some space in the credits for Avi Arad. We should do that. That would be nice to do. Maybe they did, but that seems really unlikely. So I just
Avi Arad wrote it himself, guys.
What, his own credit? Of course he did.
Yeah, he did? Really? You think he put it in there?
I'm sure he insisted that he be credited in the credits.
You think he said, write this line saying that you all thank me?
Isn't that typically how that's done? Maybe I'm being too cynical.
I would be I would love to see the tweets from people that worked on the film, like, you know, whatever, the editor, being like, I got an email from Avi Arad that says, thank myself from you. That would be hilarious. Regardless, again, I think that there are a lot of people at fault for a good and for a bad movie. It's not just Avi Arad, or it's not just Sam Raimi. I think it's everybody.
Yeah.
So that's you know, like I said, I see Josh Trank talking about Fantastic Four and how he had been, like, Josh Trank was pretty. Did you ever see Fantastic Four, the one that bombed recently?
No.
In the last few years. It's not very good, obviously.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were saying, "Oh, this is one of the worst movies ever made," et cetera, et cetera.
Jesus. Oh, maybe I should watch it then. I do like bad movies.
It's really boring, Lawrence. It's not even bad for bad's sake. It's just like boring.
It's like slow.
Yeah, it's just boring.
Okay.
And Josh Trank was sort of the same way. Like, people were asking him about it, and he was just sort of like, kind of like deep sigh and tweeting about, you know, like, he's like, yeah, I wish it were better. And I thought that was kind of cool of him to not be like throwing everybody else under the bus.
Yeah.
To be like, well, that's the fucking producer's fault. You know.
There's this tendency, and I get it, but there's this tendency when something comes out less than ideal to like believe that there was a good version that would have existed but for all these other problems. And I feel like it was most strongly felt with Justice League, which I have to admit, I got a little crow. I actually really did like Zack Snyder's Justice League, but I thought it
was certainly better than the original Justice League.
Yeah, it was a lot better. But that's also just, I also just can't stand Joss Whedon, and I never have. When something comes out less than ideal, it's never that like everyone tried their best and it just didn't work out. It's that there's a very simple and easy narrative that points to one or two villains that is the reason everything went wrong. So, it's just a human thing people like to do.
Yeah. So like that's, you know, so like when it's just interesting that people are apologizing for that. Regardless, to me these MCU movies are masterclasses in producing and film. Like, this is how you do what you do. This is how you continue a billion-dollar franchise. And I love watching people at the height of their skill level making the best shit they can. And like I just recently, I don't think you saw it, Lawrence, but did you see Eternals?
No. All the buzz about it indicated that it wasn't like, I'll watch it at some point when I'm like high as shit and it's late at night and there's nothing else to
watch.
Eternals
it's not good. It's not good. But it's also not terrible. See, I enjoyed Eternals, but the first half of that movie is fucking boring. And to me, that was the first time I watched a movie that was in the MCU that was kind of like, damn. Like, well, that and Thor 2. Both movies, I was kind of, these are kind of boring. Like, they weren't really risking anything. It was Eternals is a tough movie to make, and also it's directed by an amazing director, Chloe Zhao. So, you know, it's watching like No Way Home, watching Shang-Chi, watching these films that clearly there are so many people that really, really care about what they're making. It's just so much fun. Like, man, I just love seeing people be the best they could possibly be, and that's what I think that these are. So, I don't know. I'm not sure if you feel that way about the MCU, but I do. So.
On a technical level, that makes sense to me. I guess what leaves me underwhelmed about the MCU is that it's people putting together the best product they can, but it's a product. I don't think that any of the movies that any of the people made expressed something that was like near and dear to them, unless maybe they got somebody on the project that was just a genuine fan of the product or the character or whatever. But even then, it's still a product that comes out of being a fan of another product, which is a superhero. So I don't get a lot of genuine human expression out of those movies, but you don't really go to them for that. You go to them for like very, very crowd-pleasing sentiments and big muscle fights.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I get that feeling, that what you're describing. I get that feeling that people really care about what they're making, and they care how these scenes play out, and they care about the characters. I don't know. That's interesting that you say that. I love superhero films. I always have. I'm sure I always will. And these, to me, just feel like they are made with this really positive lens around what a hero should be. And they're not trying to be, they're not trying to be dark and gritty. They're not trying to. There's not usually a gray area. There usually is, but like you said, Lawrence, they kind of wrap it up within the film.
Yeah.
If there's a gray area, they really try and just wrap it up, and I like that. I think that's nice because there's a lot of content out there that isn't like that. That is trying to be very pessimistic and trying to really factor in reality. No, I'm not there to see reality.
I see what you mean.
Like, I'm there to see the best of people. And so that's why I kind of like these films. But also, yeah, like the special effects are just second to none. You always see the huge block of visual effects artists in the credits of these films, and I'm just like, I bow down to you people, because they are putting in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on tiny little visual effects that we'll probably never even notice, but it makes up the larger picture. And there's a reason that we love the mirror dimension, or there's a reason that we love the way Spider-Man moves and stuff like that. It's because these people are they care about that shit.
Yeah. I mean, in that regard, yeah, the action in No Way Home was really, really good. One of the issues I have with a lot of Spider-Man movies is he doesn't really fight like Spider-Man some of the time. But in No Way Home, especially when he was encountering Doc Ock, he was like webbing to all sorts of stuff and flipping, and that was one of the things that made the action sequences in Spider-Man, the Raimi Spider-Man 2, so good. In one, he would like flip around sometimes, and then they'd go into close shots of two people standing on their feet punching at each other, and it was just like, all right, okay. But in 2, when he was fighting Ock on the train, like Ock would pull him and he would web to something to keep himself anchored. Like there was a lot of good secondary action and a lot of usage of Spider-Man's specific abilities, and there was a lot of that in No Way Home as well. Which incidentally, I thought the train like passing under when the car was dangling was a fun little reference.
Yeah.
It also just filled out the scene, but I was like, oh, they're referencing Spider-Man 2 because he's fighting Dr. Octopus. I thought that was fun. There was a fair amount of that, but
yeah.
And there was another night fight. It's always got to be night fights with like in the woods with Electro. But that was
the fight at the end of the movie is during the night as well.
That's true. Yeah.
But that must be to cover like whatever CG they can get around. But I mean, yeah, these movies have budgets, but also if they need an extra $10 million, I think they probably got it.
Yeah,
like if Kevin Feige is like, hey, we need an extra $10 million for special effects of Spider-Man No Way Home, they're gonna be like, okay, like they're not gonna be like, no, can't have that money, because everyone knows he's gonna make $1 billion. So they've got all the resources at their disposal. So it's great. It's great. It's fun to watch because these are masters at work, putting out master classes in big budget pop culture films. And I don't think that anybody goes to these because they think they're going to be the next fucking Dune or what.
Well, even Dune was basically a pop culture movie.
It was. You're right.
There wasn't a whole lot that was really challenging in there. I mean, there was the one tiny line when Paul was getting a shitload of visions about how there would be I'm sorry, spoilers. How there'd be wars waged in his name, which is kind of neat. Kind of a neat idea. The fact that you can be undergoing your weird hero journey, but other people will use it for whatever purposes they want, and you won't even be a factor in it at that point. Oh yeah. There was some allusion to like greater meaning in that movie, but mostly the first movie was just go find you an exotic desert broad.
Right, but with beautiful cinematography and like sort of with the same indie lens that like Blade Runner 2049 and stuff. By the way, which I love.
Landscape shots.
I'm not saying that I don't love it. It's just more. It's just a different film. You get different feelings from it. It's made to look like art, whereas this feels more like you said, a product.
I don't even think that they're. To me, they don't feel that different. It is just the pacing and the visual of it. But man, spiritually, I put Dune right next to No Way Home. Really.
Really? Wow.
Because it just like I left the movie being like, okay, that was fun.
Yeah.
But there's not really a whole lot to think about. It didn't really give me like any new perspectives on life, which I guess that's a lot to think. It's a lot to ask of a movie, but
it is. You're right, Lance. Because I mean, like, no, it totally is. The more that I watch movies, the more I'm surprised if I walk out thinking about my morals or thinking about my convictions. And I think that that's actually pretty rare. I don't think you get films like that very often. So that's why I think it is a lot to ask of a movie. There aren't many movies that I'm like that really resonate with me and will stick with me for years and years and years. I don't think that No Way Home is like that for me. I really did enjoy it, and I had absolutely emotional responses to seeing Toby, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland talk about grief. That to me, and I've done a lot of therapy over the years, and that to me was such a therapeutic scene. And I'm not saying it was therapy for the viewer, it was therapy for those characters. And it was interesting to watch them all acknowledge each other's grief and acknowledge each other's loss, but also not step on each other and be like, because Tom Holland was like, I want to go fucking kill Green Goblin, and none of them, they didn't step in and go, whoa, that's bad, you shouldn't do that. They instead listened to him, heard him out, and knew how he was feeling. And it was, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, yeah, this is what it would be like if you were empathetic to yourself. And I was like, well, this is a really good lesson for other people to be empathetic with your friends or your family. If they were standing around saying these things and you could all sort of you had a similar experience, but it wasn't you, would you be empathetic to them? And I was like, man, this is really great. This is a great scene. So that was another thing that I took from that scene, was that it felt like therapy. It felt like sitting down and talking to a therapist, which in reality sometimes is talking to yourself. It's voicing the things that you are scared of, voicing your anger, voicing your wants and needs. And that was cool. I thought that was written really well, and also, by the way, acted perfectly by all three. So that was great. I love that. I loved it twice. I saw it twice. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think kind of what you were saying about how the movie was sort of making a much more explicit point in how it dealt with villains. I think having heroes, express grief and loss and empathetically listen to each other was another like sort of sign of the times. In the past, heroic men, they may have felt loss, but they dealt with it stoically, and it was always like the real heroes are the ones that can still go kill the bad guy even though they're hurt. Right. Or they use that grief to fuel their victory, basically.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. The thing that keeps sticking in my mind, though, is that the movie ultimately said Peter Parker's not allowed that, though. He's not allowed to talk to anybody about it. The only person he can actually confide in is a mirror dimension of himself, and he never gets that again. They've all gone back home. and now he's left
Right.
with his shitty apartment, and that's it.
You're
He's just
right.
got those four walls to kind of keep him safe. I mean, in the I did like that the movie also referenced that Spider-Men often have a place that they have to go to sort of process things or talk because they don't have people. So you know,
Right.
Spider-Man would talk to a gargoyle to get his feelings out, and that's not the most healthy way to deal with it. But yeah, that was those scenes were really good. Probably my favorite in the movie, actually.
Me too. It was funny too. Autumn's not super attached to Spider-Man in any way, shape, or form. She's also not really. I don't think she's seen a few. She's seen the Tobey Maguire ones, but not the Andrew Garfield ones. And just as they are all going to meet Tom Holland as he's on top of the building, upset about Aunt May, Autumn left to go to the bathroom.
Oh no!
And I was like, ah! And I was trying to stop her, and I couldn't. Because I was like, yeah, she probably's got to go to the bathroom. I don't want to stop her. So she went to the bathroom. She comes back, and the scene's over. And then later on, she was like, hey, why? And I was like, oh no. I was like, you missed literally the crux of the entire film. Like I was like, that's what the entire film centers around, is that scene where they all talk about what they've lost and why they fight. So it was fun. I just thought that was a funny thing. I still enjoyed it, but she wasn't like, super attached to it like you or I was. So, because I like hearing people's takes on Marvel movies when they don't have attachments to the characters, when they're just going for a ride. Yeah. And she was like, oh, it's cool. It was cool. So, and somebody else asked, what about the scene where Andrew Garfield catches MJ?
Oh yeah. Well, that was interesting, I guess, because he did kind of have the chance to go back and sort of get that weird amount of closure. I don't know. They put the shot of MJ falling in the trailer, and I was like, doing this again.
Yeah, I mean, like, and they've got an excuse because it's a different universe, so like maybe that's why MJ falls off. Because clearly MJ's always in danger here in whatever universe you're in. But again, Andrew Garfield really makes that scene for me, at least, where he catches her and he's sitting there already crying when he lets go of MJ.
I guess there was a really interesting thing that they alluded to and then sort of paid off, where they basically asked, like, you sure MJ's into you, or does she like Spider-Man? And I thought they were going down a different road because, Mary Jane seemed totally into like all the danger and Spider-Man shit. But then they just kind of, but as far as I could tell, sort of just walked away from it. I mean, she had her like a couple of lines when they were in the Wizard Dungeon, basically saying she was bought in. And I thought, like, okay, now our like Tom Holland is going to be worried, right? That she's not actually into you. She just likes the adventure and the danger. But they just kind of didn't really follow that up.
Yeah, I guess they didn't. I didn't. I kind of, like, I know what you're saying. I caught it. I just didn't really even think any more of it. I was like, I don't think they needed to follow up with it. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
It was one of the things that I was like, oh, this might be a really interesting. That's like an interesting problem to try to address. Well,
no,
the
yeah,
movie's already pretty crowded, so it didn't need it.
But you're not wrong. Yeah, but that's, I mean, people were asking about that scene. That scene's great. It seems like everybody really liked it. Just that we all could feel like Andrew Garfield had redeemed himself, basically. And that's actually something that we were talking about earlier. How Andrew Garfield was terrific. He absolutely, I think, outshined both Tom and Tobey in the scenes that he was in. But I loved how even that part of the movie I thought was therapy for Andrew Garfield, because he kept talking about how he was like there, because like, all right, well, I'll be Peter 1, I'll be Peter 2, and Andrew Garfield was like, all right, I guess I'll be Peter 3, because he knew that even in real life he was the least liked Spider-Man. And it's great to have those scenes where he acts that out with those guys, and then they each encourage each other, like they're like, no, dude, you're great, man, like, like that, you did such a good job. Like, they were all encouraging each other. I love that. And to me that felt almost like the actors were encouraging each other being like, "Hey, Andrew, you did a great job, man. Don't worry about what people said about you."
Yeah. When
I love that.
Toby tried to make him say he was amazing, I was like, that's fun. That's clever.
Yeah. That was great. So I liked that a lot too, just because it was clear that the writers and the producers and director were all very in on that. It wasn't even a joke anymore, because people had shit on Andrew Garfield for being in the Spider-Man film, being like, oh, these movies aren't very good, et cetera, et cetera. So he never really maybe got his fair shake, and I thought that helped. So
yeah, giving him a little more screen time too did wonders to give his character or give the loss of Gwen Stacy a little more depth, because in the movie the editing makes it seem like he gets over it pretty quick. Like, there's one shot of him at her grave, and then like the seasons change, and then he fights Rhino, or doesn't fight Rhino, and then the movie ends. Yeah. So
the movie ends, yeah.
I was like, gosh, she got over that pretty fast. I kind of liked in Amazing 2 how it sort of had this feeling of like, well, life goes on, even if you lose somebody, and you just have to figure out how to keep going. That was my takeaway, even though the movie was overstuffed and kind of like the pacing was terrible. But to have him come back and he has a little more screen time to actually express the grief that he was feeling,
right,
helped a lot.
Yeah. That's one thing that I'm raving about MCU, but the MCU I feel like gets it. They get that a little more than other superhero films have. They understand that these characters, when huge shit is happening to them, they have to process it a little bit. And they may not give them enough time, but at least they give them something.
Yeah.
Versus like what you said, where it's like he goes to a funeral and then 6 months later, and then he fights the Rhino.
Yeah. Spider-Man's back. Yay!
So, at least these movies are trying to give you a representation of a human processing something that is bad.
Well, it's funny you brought up the scene with Superman and Zod in Man of Steel, because there's no shot, there's no scene of him dealing with that or talking about it with Lois or anything.
True.
Right? He just kills Zod, and then the movie just kind of goes on. That should have been the grand test of his philosophy. It should have been like, I don't read a lot of Superman, but in the comics he was like crazy depressed for a long time, right? After he killed Zod, because he had to violate his like one rule. Because he didn't have a choice. And it tees up a lot of really interesting moralistic discussions, but the movie, didn't do that.
Didn't.
Because I don't know if Zack Snyder has the capacity to care about that. He just seems to like big muscle men punching each other and then cool God-related imagery, which, whatever.
Yeah, I guess somebody said they touched on it in Batman v Superman. Well, there's a reason why I don't care.
They touched?
It's because, we don't want to turn this into the Zack Snyder podcast, but I'll give you a one-line review of the Zack Snyder, the Snyderverse Justice League. I can also make a pretty great movie in 4.5 hours with $150 million. I could do that too. It took me 3 fucking nights to finish it, and I was like, this is insanity. Like, I was like, I can't believe they did this. But it is also not bad.
Maybe we'll get an extended cut of Amazing Spider-Man 2. Maybe everyone having seen this movie now will be like, wow, we got to have more of this.
That's what people are saying. They're saying Andrew Garfield's going to get a Spider-Man 3.
Ugh.
That's what they're saying. And they don't want that. They want an MCU movie. But, hey, you know what? Whatever. Go see another Spider-Man movie. I don't care. Yeah.
I feel like as long as there's money, they'll make it, right? Why not?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. It's this was, I don't know if this is going to be the highest grossing Spider-Man film with Tom Holland. It might be.
Is it not?
It might be.
I guess I assumed because of the headlines and stuff that it already was, but could be wrong.
No, I just don't know offhand. I don't know if I can say that, but I think that it probably will be, because I think Far From Home did pretty well. But I don't know how Homecoming did. I don't think Homecoming did. I think it did okay. I'm sure they'll make another one. And What do you think about Doctor Strange? Do you think that's what is it, Mephisto, or do you think that's actually just Doctor Strange being stupid?
Oh, Evil Strange in the like post credits trailer. Or do you mean in the movie?
No, I just mean
itself?
just in the movie. Just in the movie. Like what? Because I mean, like Doctor Strange, he's so smart, and so why is he kind of being sort of dumb in this?
Because there has to be a storyline. That was my take. Is like, it's, I don't know. Strange's presence in the film was just kind of anecdotal, because you needed wizard magic to make the story go. It didn't land as hard as it should have when Strange was like suddenly really, really nice and sentimental to Spider-Man at the end. Mm-hmm. Like, because he does like, you can call me Tim, or I don't know. And he's like, I'm gonna miss you, kid. And I was just like, are we really?
Steven, yeah.
Are we really? Like, nothing happened though. There was no moment where like Spider-Man proved his worth, I guess, aside from being willing to accept all the sacrifice on himself.
Yeah.
Also, he was... Why Strange, with his ability to see every dimension at all times, why was he like, nope, can't save him, sorry, bud. We gotta kill him. That's just how it goes. I'm a wizard. Yeah.
I have watched What If, and I'm still asking you. I've watched every single Marvel thing you can watch. And yes, I've watched them and loved them and enjoyed them and etc. But that doesn't necessarily explain why Doctor Strange is kind of... He seems to be a little willy-nilly with everything he's doing. You know, he's kind of like, just, well, fuck it. You know, like, and then he's like, wait about change it because of MJ. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'll change it. You know, like, and I was like, wow, that's not, okay. I mean, so that's why people are like, oh, he's a variant. I'm like, okay, well, I hope they do explain that later. I don't know that they will.
Oh, he was a different Strange?
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't seen What If, I haven't seen Loki, so some of these concepts...
I've seen them all. Okay. I've watched it all. And I really do enjoy them. But again, it just seemed a little off. No, I'm not talking the Doctor Strange 2 trailer. I'm talking about like him actually casting the spell for Peter when Peter's like, hey, I would love it if the world could forget that I was Spider-Man. And I just thought that was like, that's odd. Because if it were Doctor Strange, I'd be like, if I was Doctor Strange, I would have been like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, you got to go figure this shit out yourself.
Well, most people in chat are saying that Strange's ego has always been
his ego, yeah.
Just using magic to like do a favor for a kid, that can fall into the realm of like, I'm a wizard, whatever. Maybe I'll just do this nice favor.
Hey, guys, I'll accept that as an answer. I'm totally fine with that. I just wanted to see if I was okay with that, or if it was just to serve the narrative. I wasn't sure.
I see. So here's my question: is like, you have your cheeky Avi Arad post credits Venom tie-in, right?
Oh yeah.
But like, all right. So if the rules were that anyone who knows Peter Parker's Spider-Man is coming to that reality, then he wouldn't be there because he wasn't in that reality. Spider-Man's not there, right?
Wait, say that again.
So it was only the villains that knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man that were drawn to that dimension. Right?
Right. Yes.
But Venom, Tom Hardy Venom, doesn't know that. Hasn't even run into Spider-Man yet. So why would he have been drawn to that dimension?
Okay, so I will then go back to the end of Venom 2.
Oh, I haven't seen Venom 2 yet.
Yeah, because I saw Venom 2.
Is that it?
The end of Venom 2, he just sort of gets teleported. He just gets teleported into the universe. He doesn't really explain why. Yeah, and then he sees Spider-Man on TV or something, right? Is that why he sees Spider-Man on TV and then gets teleported? I truly do. I saw Venom 2 obviously only once.
Oh wait,
here we go.
Symbiote hive mind spans across universes. So if one Venom knows, then they all know?
So if Topher Grace's Venom knew, then that means...
Oh, that is it. Okay. Weird.
This is stuff, by the way, that they've not explained. So I, on purpose, avoid this stuff because I like to have the movies tell me. So it's interesting to hear you guys say this stuff because I don't know this.
But yeah, somebody also brought up that Electro didn't know. which also is true, I believe. I don't think in Amazing 2 that Electro ever, or that...
Oh, that I found out his secret identity?
Yeah, I don't think he ever took his mask off. Because, I mean, even in the movie, there's dialogue where he's like, oh, I thought you were black. Like, if he knew who he was, he would know that. So, it doesn't make sense. Anyway.
Right. Okay, well, that's... thank you for saying that to us, chat. I don't know those finer points of the comic lore on purpose, because I don't want to know. But yeah, I mean, like, I think that he just left a piece of his suit, which will then obviously turn into another Venom. I don't think it's going to be Tom Hardy's Venom in the MCU.
There's a different Eddie Brock in... Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they haven't introduced MCU Eddie Brock, have they?
I don't think so.
Yeah, just Flash Thompson, who I think was also Venom in a particular Spider-Man line, but maybe Venom will get on Flash Thompson in this universe.
This was a really, really, really quick throwaway, but if you didn't watch Ted Lasso, you wouldn't know. The bartender in that post-credit scene with Tom Hardy was in Ted Lasso. He's one of the soccer players in Ted Lasso, and I was like, is he gonna get the Venom? Is he gonna get the Venom suit? So I was like, oh, because I mean he's an established actor at this point, so maybe he'll get the Venom suit. I wasn't sure. I don't know.
That'd be interesting. I guess.
Yeah, people are saying Flash Thompson will probably get the Venom suit, which is fine.
Yeah, that's fine. He's a fun actor.
He is a fun actor, yeah. But I don't know if we're gonna get bad Venom or good Venom or what.
I mean, Venom's an anti-hero. He's both, Bruce. Yeah.
I mean, I know you're right. But the reason I scoffed is because
you know who else is a hero?
So terrible.
Mobius. Michael Mobius.
You mean Morbius?
Morbius. Yes. That's what I meant.
Thank God it's delayed. Hopefully they delay it forever.
What do you mean?
It's gonna be bad.
No, they only delay good movies, Bruce.
It's gonna be bad. I'm sorry, no. It will only be bad if you didn't like Venom 1 or 2. This is what I was saying, because Sony has found the formula for their Sony Marvel films, and they're trash. But if you like them, if you like Venom 1 or Venom 2, or both, then you will like Morbius, because they're going to be the same thing. So if you like those films, you're going to like Morbius.
Is Mahershala Ali's Blade, is that MCU or is that Sony?
No, that's MCU.
Oh.
The only Sony Marvel films we're getting, apart from obviously the Spider-Man films, these are joint ventures between the two. But again, Feige clearly has creative control. Are Venom 1, Venom 2, and Morbius, and they're trying to make their own little universe, because they are like purely capitalizing on the MCU.
Yeah. Which, now that you've mentioned an Amazing Spider-Man 3, God, how delicious would that be if, like, because of a Marvel movie, suddenly their Spider-Man property got more life back in it.
I mean, that's what happened.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's how they were able to make those Venom films, is because they got Tom Holland, Spider-Man in Civil War. So,
yeah.
And they made him cool again. So everyone was like, oh, I want more of that. And then they made Venom, and it's terrible. But, but again, as I more power to you if you like those films. Because they're totally dumb. They're supposed to be dumb fun. They're not meant to be part of a larger universe yet. So, whatever. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know what else. Anything else? Any other thoughts you have on No Way Home?
What do you think?
And you don't have to. I was just wondering. We can move on to The Matrix if you want to talk about The Matrix.
Well, I always want to talk about The Matrix, but I just want to put some points on the board for Jamie Foxx. I think he's an incredible actor.
Great.
All of his lines were incredible. I don't know. I saw No Way Home and I was like, damn, Jamie Foxx is so fucking good. And then I went home and watched Collateral. Because, yeah, he's been great in everything I've seen him in.
No.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like,
there were some memes. The Something of a Scientist Myself. Jeez.
Yeah. Dude, the villains in this film are just so fucking good. Like, Alfred Molina is obviously a legendary actor. Willem Dafoe, a legendary actor. Jamie Foxx, legendary. Like, these guys are absolutely legendary actors, and the MCU allowed them to shine. It was just so great. you're right. Jamie Foxx made me laugh every line. Like everything he said was a laugh for me.
Well, he kind of ended up being the voice of the audience sometimes, of calling attention to just how ridiculous everything was.
One of my favorite lines was, let me guess, a lizard. When he's talking about how the lizard wanted to turn everybody else into a lizard.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's so funny. That was so fucking funny.
Reminds me of the panel. I thought that might have been speaking of how meme-tastic some of those conversations were, I just always think of that panel with Spider-Man and Sauron, who wants to turn the entire world into dinosaurs. It's just Spider-Man trying to be like, you could cure cancer. And Sauron's like, I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn everyone into dinosaurs. I don't know. It's just a super good comic panel.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. And they actually, I mean, like they act that out in this movie. That's exactly what they say, where they're like, he's a lizard and he wants to turn other people into lizards. And I remember Autumn looked over at me during the movie and was like, is that true? And I was like, yes, that's exactly the plot of Amazing Spider-Man 1.
That's always
been
the lizard.
And it's just as stupid as it sounds.
Bruce, no one would ever lose arms again. We'd all grow our arms back. We'd be hyper-intelligent lizard people. You'll like it once you're on the other side. It's fine.
We'd all be aggressive and look like lizards.
Yeah, the aggression's kind of the downer there. I don't know why that happened. Because the lizard's just like crawling on warm rocks and hanging out. I don't know why Kurt Connors has to go ballistic.
Oh my gosh. What a terrible, terrible movie. I had no right being as okay as it was, because it was an okay movie.
Oh, Amazing 1?
Amazing 1 was an okay film. Like, I walked out of it not offended. I was like, yeah, cool, whatever.
It was just like, it was so forgettable. I don't remember most of it.
It was. Yeah, it was. It was super forgettable. And then Amazing Spider-Man 2, I felt so betrayed by that I remember walking out of that movie. I went and saw it with James, actually. James and I walked out, and I looked over at James, I was like, James, I'm never paying for another Spider-Man movie in this universe ever. I was like, never again, because I hated it.
Man, really? Was that bad?
I just remember being so upset, and I couldn't even tell you why not. I have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, I don't. People had such negative reactions to that film, and I don't quite get why. I mean, I get a lot of the things that people found distasteful, or just were like studio insertion problems of trying to force they were trying to do their cinematic universe thing. They were trying to lead up to Sinister Six, and that was a waste of screen time for sure. But like, it's nothing worse that's been in any other superhero movie by my reckoning. I don't know. People had very, very strong reactions to it.
I don't remember why. I just felt like everything was sort of squandered.
There was a stupid amount of screen time dedicated to Peter's parents and stuff, which also happens in the comics, but yeah, didn't need any of that either. Like them being SHIELD agents and shit. Don't need it. Stupid.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, those movies before MCU were trying so hard to establish the MCU, or I guess
they
be part of it.
They were trying to skip to it. Yeah, good music though. I mean, Junkie XL's soundtrack in Amazing Spider-Man 2 is phenomenal, especially when he's fighting Electro at the end. Oh my god, that might be one of the better superhero fights just in general.
Okay, cool. I don't remember the music.
Yeah, like Spider-Man and Electro are fighting at like a power station, and Electro zapping all these like transformers, and they light up like graphic equalizers and make these like huge synth hits every time he hits one. It's a really cool sequence.
I do remember that. I don't remember. I wasn't sure if I liked that or not. I do remember that though.
Yeah.
But I could see why you like it. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm sure I was just soured on that film from the very beginning. Jamie Foxx also looks terrible in that movie.
Yeah, like blue.
They made him look like garbage.
Yeah, I liked what they did with Electro in No Way Home, where he has his stupid little lightning face, but it's just little sparkles that come off of him whenever he's casting lightning bolts and stuff. Yeah, I thought that was a neat touch. Also, I feel like him plus an arc reactor should probably have been way, way more powerful, but he was just kind of throwing the same bolts he did in his movie. And like he had a nuclear power station on his chest, right? I feel like he should have been just bananas strong, but that would probably have made concluding the film difficult.
They did give a canonical reason why Fox didn't look like garbage And like he said it. He was like, I think he says he was like able to manipulate his appearance in No Way Home, which I thought was fun. I was like, oh, at least they tried to explain why he doesn't look like shit. So it's just funny to see what writers, producers, and directors will do when given a chance to correct somebody else's work or fix. I don't want to say correct or fix, just a different interpretation.
Cure, Bruce. That's what we do here. We cure bad things by coming up with a better chip and a beepy device that you clamp onto your chest that sucks all your electric power away or something.
That's right. It takes a really long time to suck it all away, though, for some reason. We're not sure why.
Yeah. Dramatic tension.
Yeah. But that was, I mean, like, this movie does that. No Way Home does that. It does fix it. It makes me care about characters that I didn't like. Like, I hated Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, and it made me care about Tobey Maguire.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. And like I said earlier in the podcast, like in our talk, I just didn't. I don't fucking care about Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. And then when he arrives, I'm like, oh my gosh, there he is, and everything he says is like super appropriate, and he's dealing with like how he's kind of dating MJ, and he's older, and like I was like, boy, I really like all this.
Huh?
But I fucking hated those movies. So like it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting because I thought he was probably the weakest part of it. His performance was really like flat. All the dialogue he was given was super non-specific because he was like, yeah, I'm dating someone, but it's complicated. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what you say when you can't say anything. When it's like you can't pin anything down. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, apparently. I was gonna say, apparently he was the one that asked for that. He was the one that asked for that. I'm gonna go ahead and time out G.I. Jones for saying that was a trash take. So you go ahead and take a little time there, bud. Take a little time. Not. It's fine. You can disagree, but you go easy.
Yeah,
you go easy.
You got to share a take that's twice as good then to make up for it.
I don't know what that's gonna be for G.I. Jones.
Well, we won't know for a while, will we?
Yeah, that's true.
That's your homework.
But yeah, I mean, like, I think you're right about Tobey Maguire being super, like, really vague, but that was on purpose. That's what he wanted.
I wonder why.
He'd asked the writers to be vague about how Spider-Man played out. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Weird. But, okay.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if Andrew Garfield had as much of a say in his character. Probably not. Because he seemed more of an MCU style character than Tobey Maguire, but I think you're right. I think Tobey was sort of the weakest link of this whole thing. Maybe because Tobey is over this whole thing. Maybe he was like, I'll do this, but I'm kind of over it. So.
Yeah, he didn't. I don't mind like characters that have been off screen for so long coming back and being that sort of, because it was sort of his performance in the writing kind of let you think whatever you wanted about his character and what was going on in his head. So I kind of liked that, given that it's been so long and people have their own impressions of that character and his portrayal of it. But I don't know. To me, it just seemed like they were intentionally leaving his character mysterious so that you would assume a lot more meaning and emotional resonance behind what he said than there actually was. Like I said, the one line that really hit was the one where he said he was trying to do better. That's the only one that I really took anything away from. And him trying to coach Andrew Garfield Spider-Man back into positivity. I thought that was a really good exchange.
Yeah, no, I did too. And I thought they killed him at the end of the film when he got stabbed.
Yeah, and then it was immediately like, nope, I'm fine.
I know, which I wasn't sure if that was like some inside joke I was supposed to know about, or if it was just the writers being like, nah, we're not going to kill him. Like I wasn't sure. I don't know.
I think it was just that you just had to have you had to have a beat where again, oh Jesus, sorry. I'm dicking around with an emulator and it was suddenly crazy loud. I think you just had to have you had to have another beat after May got stabbed where another person gets stabbed in the back by a villain. Like it was that repeated refrain where like you had to, the villain or the hero has to be mutilated multiple times. That's their calling. That's what they do. So I was like, gosh, we're really driving this home, aren't we? Man.
I mean, and to be fair, again, to the MCU, that's what would have happened. He was standing there dialoguing with Tom Holland.
Mhm.
He would have gotten stabbed. Like, I'm actually surprised they didn't stab him earlier. So it was kind of an interesting thing because I was like, oh yeah, that's right, Green Goblin. Because like in most movies, they would have sat there, dialogued at each other, worked something out, and then turned around and punched the Green Goblin. But they didn't do that because he got stabbed in the back. So I was like, oh, well, you know, that's valid. But yeah, I thought they killed him, and then I was like, oh wow, they killed him. That's cool. And then he was like, nah, I'm fine. So whatever.
Yeah, that was a little weird, but I mean, it was like, to me, that was just a writing beat. We have to have another tragic moment where you think somebody's died.
Yeah. That's what it seemed like to me. I thought it was a funny line when Tobey Maguire was like, you know, like, well, I've been stabbed a bunch. You know, it was well timed, well delivered, so maybe not. But yeah. I don't know. I enjoyed the film a lot. I thought it was really fun, and I'm happy. I'm happy it's making a lot of money, and I think I would very much recommend it.
Yeah, me too. It's one of those movies that will probably, like, regardless of people's investment in the character, will probably have a fun time watching. Yeah, for me, I can't turn my brain off, so I find some of the philosophical underpinnings a little troubling when it comes to how the movie tees up that heroes and good people are expected to behave, but you know, kind of like you said, man, sometimes that's life. If you wanna do good things, you really have to accept that sometimes you're gonna get stabbed in the back for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens a lot to a lot of heroes in these movies, is they go in with the best of intentions, and then they get fucked, and then they have to go and then it's like, honestly, it's like they have to, they are given another chance to decide. And that's what happens in Dark Knight Rises. Batman gets a shit beat out of him. And it's because he didn't, you know, decisively do what he should have done, right? But that's what you're doing. You're giving the bad guy a chance because you're a good guy. Otherwise, you just go in there and shoot him in the head and it'd be over with. But that's not what heroes do. So that's what this feels like to me. Is just like, well, he gets another chance, even though he fucked everything up. And that's kind of what happens in a lot of hero movies.
Is that that was the takeaway from Dark Knight Rises?
Well, that's just, well, no, that was just I was likening it to that because that's what happens. Like he's arrogant. In Dark Knight Rises is totally different. He's arrogant, and he goes in and he, you know, like he's like, oh, I can easily take this, and then gets his ass kicked. But it was
because he was afraid of dying, right? That's what he had to learn by crawling out of the pit. He had to abandon his attachment to his own life so that he could fight suicidally. That's kind of what. Well, sorry, this is a huge aside, but that was what I thought Dark Knight Rises was getting at.
Oh no! At the end of the movie, no, the guy in the pit specifically says the fear is what makes him survive.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, he had to want to live. Okay. Yeah. I forgot about that. I got it backwards.
Yeah, no. He says like, no, that's the reason why he made the jump. It's because he was afraid of dying.
Gotcha.
And then Batman wasn't like he'd given. Batman at the beginning of Dark Knight Rises had just given up entirely. He was just like, fuck it, I don't care anymore. Like, I'm good at my job, but I don't care. I also don't give a shit if I have to sacrifice myself for Gotham. And that was the wrong attitude to have. Whatever, you know. This is a Dark Knight Rises podcast.
Gotcha.
Well, truthfully, I don't know. It could be talking out of my ass. I haven't seen the movie in years. So, but anyways, yeah, cool. Do you want to talk about The Matrix?
Always and forever.
Let's do it. Let me pull up some Matrix trailers here.
Ooh.
I also I had the Spider-Man No Way Home wiki up because I was like, just in case we talk about the plot, but I'm gonna really need the Matrix Resurrections wiki because, woof, I watched it once. Have you only seen it once, Lawrence?
I've seen it twice.
Oh, good, perfect. So you're gonna know more than I am. Okay, terrific. Hold on just a second. I'll just let one trailer play. The official trailer 2. Okay. All right, Lawrence. I want to hear what you have to say about the Matrix Resurrections. Did you like it, first of all?
I loved it. I super loved it.
That's great. What did you love about it?
I love that it had something to say, and made a fair amount of points fairly effectively. I loved that it didn't. I think how to say this. It contained an expression from the creator that I resonated with. I kind of like that it took a lot of the themes of the show and made them mean something else in context. It sort of redefined what the Matrix means in the context of the Matrix.
What do you mean the show? You mean the
movie? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, are you talking about the Animatrix?
I mean, we can, but that's largely immaterial, I think. Those are just, it's an anthology, right? Side story stuff.
No, yeah, but you mean the original movie, or I guess maybe the 3 movies?
Yeah, the original trilogy, which kind of you can separate the original and then the next two, but what else did I thought it was a very colorful film.
It was. It really was.
I thought, let me think, what other good things about it? There were some not good things, I think, that most people who watch it can identify pretty quickly. But let me think. It kind of like I was saying, the counterpoint to No Way Home is that it gave me a whole lot to think about, a whole lot to chew on, a whole lot to examine about my own life. And it's kind of resided in my head. There are individual lines in there too that mean a whole lot. There's actually a whole lot of lore and world building that happens very, very, very quickly, like one or two lines that you really have to kind of think and parse in context of the universe. There's a whole lot that reads a whole lot different when you watch it again and kind of know some of the like lore gimmicks that are revealed halfway through the movie. And I think ultimately, even though I think it didn't necessarily execute the love story perfectly, the idea that like Neo and Trinity are like their beings are in love, regardless of how they look or what body they're in, is pretty sweet.
Soul.
Yeah,
it's their soul. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that has persisted across being reborn and reanimated and resurrected,
remade. Yeah.
So that's nice, I guess.
No, I actually really like that a lot. That was my favorite part of the film.
Yeah, the love story part.
I liked that. I thought that was it was a really sweet thing that honestly I thought the first Matrix kind of glossed over. Because if you remember, Trinity brought Neo back because she loved him. Mm-hmm. and I was always like, wow, what? That's part of the world? And they gloss over it very quickly. And then he's back and then he fights and wins. But in this movie, they really explain why that works, which I thought was cool.
Oh yeah, they gave lore rules to their love and like the energy generating principles of it. Yeah, which I liked. I thought again in the first Matrix they didn't give it enough. They didn't give a love story enough when they used it to bring back the main hero. But in this movie they explain, oh okay, although this is why it works. It's because they're always, like you said, their souls are always in love. Yeah. There's man. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
What questions did it ask you about your own life that you had to chew on later? I'm curious.
Let's see. I think it asks the audience to examine their relationship with the entertainment they like, and why they like it. I think it implores the audience to ask a little more of the media and the artwork they take in. Mm-hmm. I think what I appreciated, I think, is that part of it was a sort of personal message of like, here was my experience making the Matrix and seeing the world react to it. Right. I appreciated that quite a bit because I've always been curious about that. It's one thing to like to take in a work from an artist, and it's another one to see a work that was so massively influential and like fueled a whole zeitgeist. Like there were idiots walking around with trench coats and stupid glasses for a while after the Matrix.
Yeah.
But it's what I've always appreciated, especially about Matrix 2 and 3, is that much like Matrix 4, they could have just done another movie with more of the thing that most audiences liked. And they did. They served that in Matrix 2 especially. I mean, there were like crazy action sequences, ridiculous computer animation. Like, it had all that stuff. But they also, God bless them, decided to make it a philosophical treatise on like science fiction in general and free will and predetermination. And they wrapped all these things in there that for most people just made it unnecessarily bloated and pretentious. But I was super into it because at the time those were a lot of the things I was wrestling with, is my own free will, what makes a person, you know, actualized, all that sort of stuff. So I was super into it. I think similarly, now being much older, I wonder about my life and what gives it meaning and significance. Is my life just moving from one pop culture movie where people in spandex punch each other to the next, and that's what I have to look forward to?
Right.
So I think the movie makes a pretty powerful counter argument to that like there is a rich world of meaning out there. You just have to kind of step outside of the predetermined day to day.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. I can safely say that I got all of those concepts, that's the same that you did, from this movie. And I thought it was nice that they specifically probably Lana Wachowski tried to not answer those questions, but ask them at least in the film, with that, you know, having people sit around a boardroom talking about their work of art. And this is going to sound kind of weird, but it's interesting to say, oh yeah, the director was self-reflecting on like how people saw their film. But all I could think about, you tell me if you've heard this story. All I could think about was Will Smith talking about how this movie was pitched to him. Have you ever heard that story?
No. The original? No.
Okay. Yeah, so you know how Will Smith was going to be Neo in The Matrix? Apparently, the Wachowskis went to Will Smith and they pitched the movie to Will Smith thusly. They said, this is Will Smith. Will Smith tells it better, obviously, because it was pitched to him. But this is secondhand through Will Smith. And he says, the Wachowskis were like, there's going to be 300 cameras around you as you jump up in the air and do a kung fu move, and the special effects will then basically they'll do a circle around you as you do it, and you're going to be like, and again, this is all off the top of my head, and you're going to be blocking bullets and doing karate moves, and like they were pitching the movie as an action film to Will Smith.
Yeah, because they're trying to. I mean, from an actor's perspective, that's probably what would sell him on the movie.
It didn't, obviously.
And those were the kinds of roles he was taking at the time too.
Yeah, and so to me, I was like, I wonder if that was the way they viewed their film. Then once it came out and everybody wrote all their essays about it, then they were like, wait a minute, I did make a movie that was really thought provoking. I don't know, I'm not sure. Wasn't this based on a comic too, Lawrence, or no? Was it?
If it is, I'm not aware. I mean,
was it a complete original work of art? I wasn't sure.
I mean, it's chock full of like spiritual references to other cyberpunk works. That's for sure.
It's based on a book.
Oh, it is based on a book.
Yeah, it was something. Right. It was based on something that, because I thought it wasn't completely original. That said, by the way, I love the first Matrix. Love it, and was an apologist for the second Matrix. I wanted so badly to be reloaded to be good, that I, got in lengthy arguments with my friends about it. Because I was like, isn't it cool that the Matrix was already done 6 times? Like, wow. And nobody thought it was cool. I was an apologist for that. And so when the third one came out, I was like, ugh, damn it. Fuck, I really, really wanted Revolutions to wrap that up, and it did not. But how did you feel about the first, or I guess, yeah, tell me how you felt about the first 3. I'm curious to hear those.
The first one is a
It's masterful.
It's an extremely formative, but kind of by the numbers hero's journey. The philosophical implications are fun but light. It does dip into like Plato's parable of the cave territory, which is fun. Maybe trying to convince people that their perception is not truth. Something that the world could probably stand and hear a little more of these days. But yeah, it's for me. It was really 2 and 3 that made me fall in love with the Wachowskis as filmmakers, because they bit off so much more than they needed to. Now, to your point, maybe the runaway success did give them the pressure to like make the sequels mean more than they did, kind of thing, or mean more than they needed to. But it worked for me, and I think their films since then have been somewhat in line with that. I don't think their films are ever just like 100% audience pleasing. They always put something from them in there.
They do.
Yeah,
you're right.
So I kind of that's kind of what I take away is that it's like Cloud Atlas is an incredible movie. Probably the most watchable one. Because man, I've tried to make people watch Speed Racer and people don't have it. They are not down with it.
I loved Speed Racer when I saw it. I was a big fan of it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Most people just get, I guess, visually overwhelmed. Maybe is the word, because that movie's got a lot going on.
It does. It doesn't make sense as a film. It makes sense as like a piece of edited content.
Yeah. It's an editing showcase more than a movie.
But it's great. And also Cloud Atlas, I had just read the book, so it was perfect.
Ooh, wow.
I read the book, and then I went and saw the movie, and I was like, I knew immediately what was going on. So a lot of people are like, man, Cloud Atlas is so fucking confusing. I got exactly the right experience for Cloud Atlas.
Right on.
Yeah.
Let's see here. But let's see here. In terms of just my evaluation of the movies, yeah, I was really blown away by Matrix 2. Gave me a lot to think about. Had a lot more kind of crowd-pleasing segments in it. 3 is a really fascinating movie, but it's not easy to watch. It is a downer of a movie. It's like everyone's dying, and it's even more kind of philosophically crazy. I do appreciate that they teed up a really hard question and then answered it, or got close to answering it. Between what's the is it free will? Is it determination? What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, kind of thing. So I appreciated the intent and the execution, even if I haven't really watched Revolutions a whole lot, because it is just a hard watch.
It really is.
Yeah, and it's the CG is probably dated the most in that one. So,
well, all those Agent Smiths in Reloaded look like trash. Oh.
Yeah, they're gummy men now. At least the imagination of the choreography kind of sold that sequence more than the CG has held up.
That's true. Yeah, because I went to watch. I remember really enjoying Reloaded in the theater, and then I went to watch Reloaded like a few years ago, and I was like, oh fuck! Like they all look like the Scorpion King.
Yeah, they're all blobby Play-Doh boys. Yeah, they sure are. But man, that music though, huh? That Juno reactor pounding in your ears.
It was great. That soundtrack's awesome.
Yeah.
That soundtrack's awesome. But anyways, back to the Matrix Resurrections. Yeah, it felt like I think what you said is true about Wachowski's basically like trying to ask a bunch of new questions about their property, which I thought was cool. I appreciated that. It wasn't just a rehash. But I also thought it was lighter than Reloaded and Revolutions. I thought it felt to me like this was like, we're not going to take it as seriously. Did you get that sense or no?
I did. Yeah, it was a bit more playful, because I get the sense that they did the thing. Like they already made Matrix 2 and 3. There's no reason to be so self-serious now, especially because just on the surface level, I think the movie understands that it's kind of ridiculous that there is a Matrix 4. So I think the whole movie is kind of approaching itself from that perspective of like, why are we here? So it can be a little more flippant, I think, with its tone.
Yeah. No, the meta aspects for me did not take me out of this story. It sounds like Lawrence liked them. I like that kind of stuff. I think it's fun.
I do too. I think some people thought that like the meta stuff was unrealistic, but it's not. It's really not. Like, so I know a lot of people reacted pretty strongly to the boardroom scenes and thought it was cringe, but that's how people talk in those boardrooms, where they just sit around for months doing no work. Like that's an idea person room, and they exist and they're real. And if you ever wonder why people who have some amount of artistic success never make anything, it's because they're just basically doing that all the time.
Lawrence speaks the truth here. So if you've not experienced that, we have.
Yeah.
And they were playing, I guess like exaggerated versions of themselves in that boardroom. But I promise you, I have been in boardrooms like that, where they're saying, like bullet time, and you're just like, oh my gosh. and all of the people sitting around the table being like, fuck, what the fuck are we gonna do? This person's just saying a phrase over and over. That doesn't mean we can do something.
What about the projected movies of the first films? I mean, they said it in the scene. They're talking to you, the audience, when Morpheus is like, some nostalgia helps ease the transition. They're transitioning you into the actual movie at that point, because you're exiting the Matrix finally again. But that's when the movie like drops its cynicism. But there's some times where the characters talk to you, the audience, when the analyst / Neil Patrick Harris's character holds up the apple for the bullet time shot. He's like, here, audience, are you happy? We did the thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I get how audience members could like feel like they're being spited by that, like the Last Jedi sort of sensation of, you think you went Star Wars, but we're gonna do the opposite. So I kind of get that. I didn't necessarily have that reaction because I didn't want another Matrix. And also I expect Matrix to be heady, whereas Star Wars isn't supposed to be, or typically hasn't been. So that was my read on it, is like, that was kind of in there for people who desperately needed to see old Matrix again. I thought it also kind of made context in the story too of like they're trying to zero in on Neo.
Let me ask you this. Well, first I want to address Seabrad in the chat. Seabrad, you don't need to watch it again, by the way. You are not wrong. If you didn't like the boardroom shit, that's totally fine. Like, you feel free to not like it. It's okay. I'm just telling you, we've been through that. But I can see why it feels cringe, because it is cringe.
Yeah.
in real life, it is cringe. No, I was assuming that the projected scenes that they were showing in the movie from the previous films were from the video game he made. Am I wrong?
So yeah, that was the context of it, is that in that version of the Matrix, the movie was a game that people played, which is weird because I feel like at some point in the concepting of this movie, they were going to have scenes from the movie rendered in a video game engine, which might be what The Matrix Awakens was alluding to. That demo that you can download, the tech demo. So that
yes.
I think that might have that at some point, maybe that was supposed to be the technical wow factor of this Matrix, is that all the Matrix 1 scenes were rendered in an engine. I could see that being like the concept at some point. Clearly it didn't make it through to execution, but there's a couple, like, that leads to a couple of things that I think are just amazing. That in Matrix 1, essentially a dude gets courted by a hot girl in latex and gets to lead a cool superhero hacker lifestyle, which is just like a really kind of surface level fantasy for a lot of boring white dudes, but like myself included, by the way. But in Matrix 4, a dude makes a video game. The video game characters come to life and tell him that he can go into the video game and be a digital god in there. That's the premise of the movie, even though it's buried under a lot of layers of meta irony. And that's the dumbest fucking thing. That's like the most surface level fantasy. That's a very 90s movie that I thought was amazing. I really like that.
You're blowing my mind, because wait, hold on. So let me get this straight. So first they resurrect Neo and Trinity. They both die right in Revolutions. Yep. They resurrect them. They put them back into a new Matrix that Neil Patrick Harris has designed. Mm-hmm. And then, in order for Neil Patrick Harris to find something for Neo to do in his Matrix, Neo then makes a video game about his previous memories from a previous Matrix. Is that correct?
Sort of. I don't know that timeline played out like that. I think Neo is just Tom Anderson with like that backstory sort of implanted.
Oh, okay.
I think the aspect about the game coming to life is that he made his modal, which is like a matrix inside the matrix. He made a simulation of the Matrix 1 that was running on his machine, which is where the movie starts, which by the way is another meta irony thing. When Matrix 2 and 3 were going to come out, I remember everybody was sort of speculating that there would be another Matrix. Like that was supposed to be the twist of the third movie, is that the reason Neo can beam down robots with his mind is because the real world is another Matrix.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, but at the intro of Matrix 4, it actually starts in a simulation inside the Matrix. So it is 2 matrices deep. They actually did that. But it like they did it in a way that wasn't immediately obvious. So I thought it was fun that they took that expectation and used it just in a way that was completely different than people were expecting.
So the characters. All right, hold on, because now I'm confused. Because if the characters then were in the mode, so for example, Lawrence Fishburne or what's his name, Yaya, the guy that plays Morpheus, he is basically a digital projection made up of nanomachines in the real world.
Yes,
right?
He is,
but what about Bugs? If Bugs came from the Matrix that Tom Anderson designed, how is Bugs real in the real world?
Bugs is from the Matrix that the machines designed. Morpheus is from the simulation of Matrix 1 that Tom Anderson made.
So Bugs is still real, but Bugs was from the Matrix that was in the Neil Patrick Harris Matrix, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, that's what. So they basically found each other, is what happened.
Bugs found Morpheus. And Morpheus was
in the modal.
And Morpheus was Morpheus is a Matrix 1 agent, because there weren't really agents anymore either. Now they just use bots. But Neo or Tom Anderson made a recreation of Matrix 1, hoping that somehow by recreating it he would figure out why he doesn't feel like he belongs.
Correct.
And it ended up working. Bugs found it, and in so doing discovered that one of the agents had become sentient and was the new Morpheus, basically. That's my understanding of it anyway.
That sounds right. I think. Okay, so yeah, we're on the same page. Because I thought you were gonna blow my mind and say that Bugs wasn't real. I was like, what the fuck?
I'm pretty sure Bugs is real.
Yeah, but that makes a lot of sense now that I think about it. Because I only saw it once again. You saw it twice. So I think you have a better understanding. King Saren said, Lawrence explaining this makes sense. Watching the movie, this isn't clear. And I would agree. I was along for the ride and was really trying to understand, and I thought that I did. It sounds like I pretty much did. But I think as the more we talk about it, I'm sure I'll have more questions for you, Lawrence.
Like I said, they do so much story and lore explaining with like 2 lines, and then the movie moves on. So it actually does kind of click, but it does require you to kind of like limber up your brain about reality and digital things being real. So yeah, the movie is actually pretty heady in terms of its like science fiction trappings. But yeah, when you watch it the first time, you're kind of distracted by all the meta irony and shit.
Yeah. I was kind of like, I felt like I could understand what was going on, and I was just happy to accept the nanomachines made up Morpheus, and that we were also friends with machines who joined our rebellion, which I, by the way, thought was totally real. That was something to me that could totally happen if we had a war with machines, and then there were a few machines that had decided, you know what, I don't want to fight for the machines. I want to fight for the humans. That was cool. I liked that little piece of the lore they added. Yeah. And so, okay, let me ask you this. Why was Neo not able to get his powers back, but then Trinity could fly at the end, but not Neo? And then eventually they both flew. Why did that happen?
I think that's in the realm of theory.
Okay, all right. I wasn't sure if you had an actual answer for me or not.
Honestly, the best answer, and one that might be a scapegoat, might not, is that in the thoroughly contrived confrontation between Neo and New Smith, They fight for a little bit, and then Smith is like, "You changed. You lost something." And Neo is like, "You're right. I'm not that guy anymore." So you could read into it like Neo is older now, and he doesn't have that. What I read into that is that he doesn't have that kind of Rage Against the Machine, fuck everything up energy anymore. Which you can also read into the fight between, the air quotes fight between him and Morpheus in the dojo training throwback sequence. Neo doesn't really fight anymore in any of the scenes.
It's true, he doesn't.
It'd be tempting to say that Keanu Reeves was older, but we've seen John Wick, so we know that he can. I actually think it might be a writing thing. Neo is a pacifist. So I think, and I think he also he's not the one anymore, even though the one wasn't even really a thing ever. It was just another element of control kind of thing. So I guess he didn't know how, willingly forgot how to manipulate the Matrix like that. Like, he still could to some degree, but he just didn't have the juice anymore. And Trinity did, I guess. Yeah, that's really the best I got.
Why did Trinity?
I mean, why did Neo in the first movie? I think at that point it's just kind of like she is the one.
I guess Neo did in the first movie because they had to designate a one. That was like it was like a bug in the Matrix, right? Wasn't that the lore? Is that every Matrix had to have a one?
Sorta. Yeah. I guess in context of Matrix 2 and 3, the one exists to sort of define the undefinable aspect of humanity, which ended up being free will. So Neo is the one man they grant free will so that he can run around in the Matrix, have human experiences, and then reintegrate so the machines can better learn how to understand humanity. Theoretically that happened again, although from how the analyst talks, they don't really do that anymore. It's really just keeping them close but separate.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Now it just seems like... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, which sounds like... it sounds like retconning, but if you go back and watch the other Matrixes, then I guess it kind of makes sense, because truly, even though the story tells you over and over he's the one, but in this one, in Resurrections, they say, no, it's both of them. And I think that's cool.
I mean, there's also a line in Resurrections of Neo saying, "I didn't ever believe I was the one either." Because the one is not really a thing, as teed up by the second and third movie. It's just something that, it's like a legend that they make up so that everyone in the Matrix buys into it.
Well, wait, hold on, Lawrence. But why could he control machines outside of the Matrix in Revolutions?
Yeah, that I never really actually wrapped my head around.
I don't think anybody could.
So
I wanted an answer to that question for years.
The closest that comes to is there are schools of philosophy that kind of Plato's parable of cave kind of thing, where once you understand that reality is a reflection of something else, if you can grasp that ultimate truth, if you can understand how to bend not only your own perception but others, then you do get the powers of a god in any reality. So I think that's what they were alluding to.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, is that once you understand actual universal truth and become fully actualized, that with the powers of your mind.
So that's supernatural.
Yeah.
That's not sci-fi anymore. That's supernatural.
Yeah, it's just like it's like almost, it's like borderline drugged out Philip K. Dick science fiction, essentially.
or honestly, it's like reaching full enlightenment. That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. That was the whole idea, is that Neo is the one actualized man, the only man that actually has free will. He can rise above his status as being a slave to his circumstances and his upbringing or whatever. He can choose, which is, it's the final line between him and Smith. And Smith, who is a slave to his purpose, dies once he loses his purpose, which is to kill Neo. So by sacrificing himself, he has undone Smith. Except now he hasn't. So,
Well, yeah, I was going to say, so sorry, I didn't mean to derail us on the Revolutions, but the reason I'm asking is because in this movie, it feels like Resurrections is trying to tell us, well, there isn't the one. We need both Neo and Trinity. And as long as Neo and Trinity are both there, then, they have the power to change things or not, if the analysts can keep them, under control. Is that right?
Yeah, and there are schools of thought and like you said, literary analyses of the Matrix films that basically posit that Neo and Trinity are one person split into two. So by uniting, then they become a full person capable of love and completeness.
Cool. Okay.
Which she's called Trinity, so really it's Neo, Trinity, and Smith that form a complete person.
Sure.
Which is kind of why Smith is still around and says things like, "You never appreciated our relationship," because Smith is actually a part of Neo, kind of thing. Yeah, there are parts where the Matrix very willingly, I think, goes off into non-specifics in terms of its characters and what they can do and why. Yeah, and then Scott brings up a good point in chat about how Neo and Trinity have to be together because there's a lot of binary talk in Matrix 4. Actually, the game that Thomas Anderson was working on before he woke up again was called Binary, so there's a lot of that imagery too.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, I saw somebody in my chat say, I didn't really get any of this, but I still liked it. And I think the movie is likable. I think it's fun to watch. I was bummed that there weren't any really good action scenes. Like that was, and that's obviously I'm in the boardroom talking about bullet time, but I was bummed that I didn't get at least a little bit of Matrix action. And there was a little bit of it, but it didn't feel quite like the wide shot, 30-second choreographed fight that we would get from the other Matrix. I don't know if you felt that way.
I did. I mean, I was disappointed, like I think a lot of people were. What was more confusing to me is that some of the cinematography was just a little off. Like there was some of that where like in the scene where like Morpheus busts in to the office and they have their like office shootout. That's sort of grandly referential to the finale of the first movie, with, like the slow motion rain and everything. Morpheus is out there like doing flips and stuff, but a lot of them are like weirdly off camera. Like half of his body's off camera while he's doing these cool Matrix flips, and I'm like, yeah. What? Why didn't you just frame him correctly? So there's some weirdness there for sure. Now that said, if you go back to the original Matrix, how recently have you rewatched it?
That's a good question. It's maybe like 2-3 years ago.
I mean, a lot of it holds up, and there's some really, really excellent fights and cinematography in there. But I think the weight of a lot of it kind of rode on the back of the like meaning of the scenes, which is completely different in this movie. So like the dojo fight was rad because it was the first time you were seeing Matrix Kung Fu, but you've already seen it. So like I went back and watched that movie, watched Matrix 1, and a lot of that stuff is still really, really cool. But if that were in Matrix 4, I think it still would have disappointed people. Maybe. I mean, the Neo versus Smith fight, if there was something on that level in Matrix 4, I think people would have been very satisfied. But a lot of the stuff that they did in Matrix 1, like if you take out bullet time, which the movie almost intentionally said it wasn't going to do, then you basically have the dojo fight, you have the lobby shootout, that was all bullet time, never mind. And then you just have the big set pieces like the helicopter blowing up and stuff like that. So,
right. Yeah, I think you're right. I agree with you. There were a couple scenes that still stand out to me from Reloaded and Revolutions. One of which is the fight of him fighting the Keymaster. I think its name is.
I never fought the Keymaster. You mean Seraph?
Or Seraph, that's who it is. Yeah, Seraph. Yeah. I don't know.
That one was dope as hell.
Yeah, I remember that fight being fucking rad. And because that was again like it's a wide shot, and they spent weeks clearly choreographing that fight, and it looked great. And I didn't really get many of those in this one. So I wasn't even looking for bullet time or anything. I was just kind of looking for cool choreographed fights because there aren't many movies that do those, even now. And I always thought the Matrix did those so well, even when they were fully deep in the Matrix lore. I thought that those fights were always done really, really well. And like the only other fights I can really think of like that are with, talking about the raid or the lightsaber fight in Phantom Menace, or those sorts of really fucking cool single take choreographed fights. So I just didn't get that. That was just for me. That's just a personal thing. That wasn't like, they didn't need to fulfill that for me to like the movie. It's just something I thought about.
No, I agree. I would have been cool to have that element back. I think the movie said pretty clearly that it wasn't, well, and this is where I feel like audiences could feel like they were being spited, which makes sense to me, but I think the movie kind of tried to say it wasn't trying to be that. But then there were action sequences that were okay, which is odd. Like, probably the coolest stunt in the whole thing was Neo doing like the double wall run kick, which was kind of neat.
Yeah.
And then like the supporting actors, and again, pretty superfluous scene, but when Merovingian comes back and brings a lot of weirdos to just fight for no reason. The supporting cast, there's some pretty decent side takes of them tossing up with some stunt performers. It's not it's not the Hong Kong action. It is a little more like kind of North America action sequence, but they're not the worst. But I think it didn't meet expectations in that regard for sure.
It's I was really excited to see the Merovingian, by the way, because I really like that character. And I could not hear a word that motherfucker said. He had a bunch of shit on his face, and he had the thickest accent in the world, and they had him yelling at the top of his lungs while music was playing and people were fighting, and I wanted to hear what he was saying.
I had that problem too, which is why I watched it again specifically with subtitles on. I remember people having that issue with Matrix 2 and 3. Like they couldn't understand Merovingian because his accent was too damn strong.
I think it's a French accent for that actor.
Yeah.
But,
was it the same actor? I didn't even look at the credits.
Yeah, it's the same actor. And I was really excited about it. I thought they were going to bring back Monica Bellucci too, but it was cool to see Merovingian, and I was like, oh man, I can't wait. And then he was like, I was like, what? I don't know what he said. So that, like you said, that whole scene was just a throwaway. I was like, okay.
It didn't end up super mattering, unfortunately. He's mostly just complaining about how he used to have a great life and Neo fucked it all up. So he's here to repay the favor, basically.
Got it. Okay.
I think if you want to read into it, because there's a lot of commentary about the Hollywood system, and I mean, God, the villain is called the Analyst, for Christ's sakes. If anything, you could argue that the Merovingian is an insert for like all of the Hollywood executives that were living fat off the Matrix and then got mad that the Wachowskis didn't want to just keep making that forever. If you want to be really kind to the movie and its representations.
Yeah. And I could see that. I mean, like they made those direct references to Warner Brothers in the film.
Yeah, which was pretty great. Which The Matrix Awakens. Did you ever play the tech demo for Matrix Awakens?
I did, yeah.
Okay. I thought the tone of that was so weird and confusing, but having played Matrix 4 or having watched Matrix 4 now, it makes all the sense in the world. Because I think Neo and Trinity are their like Matrix 4 characters at the end of the film in that demo. The way that they talk to each other and stuff.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, they're like weirdly self-aware and jokey about Hollywood stuff.
Huh. Okay. All right. I'm going along with you there. I'm fine with that.
I don't know that it makes it any better, but it's just something to think about, I
guess. The whole machine world thing, it seemed like a lot for them to have to like penetrate the giant machine fortress twice. Did that not seem like a lot to you?
Oh, just in terms of
to get Neo back and then also to get Trinity back. Like I was like, wouldn't this be more heavily guarded? I don't know.
Yeah, they tried to address that in the dialogue, right? They were like, we used our one shot to get you out. And then they come up with a whole heist scheme to do it again.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, I don't know. Was the heist, was that cool? Was that cool for you?
It didn't make sense.
Yeah, that's what I was really trying. I was really trying to be like, I want this to make sense. I really do.
The first movie is pretty clear about the rules, about the it's so good at establishing stakes. If you're in the Matrix and you die, you die. You have to get to a hard line to get out. So it sets up like so many good chase sequences based on those world rules. The rules of Matrix 4 are a little different, and they don't explain them explicitly. But I think like you can't just leave. You still have to go to like a portal. You have to go to a reflective surface. Right. Which, by the way, there's so much imagery in Matrix 4 about reflections. It kind of plays into that 1 and 0 binary thing again. Like just the opening, there's code crawling down that says the Matrix, and then code crawls up to say Resurrections, which, you know, Phoenix Rising, but like code never crawls up, never, ever. So that was kind of weird. Right away, I'm like, oh, what are they doing? They're twisting it on me again. And then the next shot is code reflected through puddles on the ground, and it's crawling up because it's reflected.
Right.
And then the way that Neo gets out of the Matrix is going through a mirror. He transitions scenes in the Merovingian fight to like the dirty basement or whatever by falling through another mirror. So there's a lot of like, I think you have to get to a mirror or a reflective surface to exit the Matrix now, or something like that. You have to go through a portal, a reflective portal, to see the other world. So based on that, with the heist and stuff, it's like they tried to set up the stakes of it, but it was really fuzzy. Like Trinity has to choose of her own free will. Once that happens, we can, like, I don't quite understand, having watched it twice now, I don't understand why they had to have Bugs be like a surrogate.
Right.
For them to swap.
The surrogate part was I was like, why? And I'm sure they explained it, but I still don't know.
They kind of didn't. I think it was something like, it's almost like the Indiana Jones thing of like trying to swap the statue with the weight. I think they were trying to make it so the machines wouldn't know right away that they were trying to get her out.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. All right. There we go. That's all I needed.
And probably teed up the like one of the cooler original science fiction, or one of the cooler like visual shots of like Trinity freaking out and her splitting into like multiple shadow images. I thought that was a neat shot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That it's like you don't want the Matrix to know that she's gone until she is already gone.
Yeah, you have her physical body out, but she was still connected with the Matrix because you can go into the Matrix wirelessly, but you always could. That was kind of a thing in the old movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still a little fuzzed about that. I don't think they did a really good job of setting up the rules and the stakes of the Trinity heist.
Phobos asked, you both feel that the robots / AI had too much personality? I liked that.
I mean, they were taught how to be human by Neo, right?
You mean like the one that looked like an eagle or a bird, and like there were a few other. Were they taught by Neo? Is that why?
I mean, that was what I read from the end of the third movie, is that Neo kind of merged his consciousness into the Matrix to kind of teach. He was basically integrating the human aspects of free will into the machines and teaching them how to feel and be human so that they could coexist peacefully. I mean, I'm assuming a lot there because they didn't really get into that, but
that's fine.
That's what I read into it, is that the Matrix has been around for a long time and now has hybridized with human consciousness. So it makes sense that they would be a little more quirky and human. I mean, in Matrix 1, though, Smith expresses that he thoroughly resents being in the Matrix. So they're capable of resentment and hatred and some form of emotion. Yeah,
because that was the beginning of. I mean, the Matrix. Machines had already been sentient for a long time at that point, because they created the Matrix. Okay, yeah, all right, that makes sense. Somebody was asking, how'd you like the new Smith? I thought he was great. I thought he did a great job. I wish that Hugo Weaving was there, but he wasn't.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I mean, I thought he did a good job, but Hugo Weaving, man, can't beat him.
No, you can't. He's just a giant presence.
Also,
and
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say I don't even know if they asked him. I'm not even sure.
I remember somebody saying that he was approached but was unavailable because he was doing another shoot or something like that. That was just an anecdote that I heard, though. I have no idea if that's actually the case.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
I just thought, on the subject of Smith, I thought his presence in the movie wasn't quite very well justified. Aside from yeah,
you are correct. Yeah.
He's connected with Neo in very spiritual ways. And I guess based on the fact that there are a lot of programs that have been kicking around the Matrix through its multiple iterations, like the Merovingian and all of his weird werewolf boys and ghost boys and stuff, it kind of makes sense that Smith's consciousness still resided in the Matrix somewhere. I think probably it was more... It had more meaning as being representative of like the creative process and how there's going to be a businessman in the room that's going to do the shitty thing, or going to be that part of the conversation. That seemed to be more what Smith represented in context of Resurrections, but like he showed up once to just force some action, and that's it. And then he showed up at the end just to be like, I really like being in the Matrix and trying to take control of it. Or I guess. He was like, I have plans, and this will ruin them. And then he just leaves. He's like, all right, I'm done. See you later. And then just walks out of the movie. So, it was too much like, my motivations are mysterious because I'm a jester for me.
Right.
Especially in a movie that's otherwise very intentional and deterministic with what it does and says.
It's funny you say that, because that's how I felt. That's what they did to Hugo Weaving's character, I thought, in like Revolutions and Reloaded, because in The Matrix it's very clear what Agent Smith wanted, and then in Reloaded it's like, okay, he now wants out, right? He wants out, and Neo's in his way. Is that what it was in Reloaded?
He was trying to figure out why he was alive, I think. And
see, this is what I mean. It got really like vague.
Yeah.
As time went on.
Philosophically, he just served as the counterpoint to Neo's existence as having free will. And I think he does a monologue before he fights Neo in the Burly Brawl, and he talks about how he was given like life, but he doesn't know what to make of it because he doesn't know his purpose for living, and the one that he's decided on is to kill Neo. That's all he can figure, is that he lives to kill Neo. So that's basically what he's doing through Matrix 2 and 3. But that means he doesn't have sentience because he's slave to his purpose, basically.
Right. And that to me, so like I wasn't. So when New Smith pops up and is like, I am bad and now I am good, like I was kind of like, whatever. I don't fucking care. Like that's what he did before. In 2 and 3, he was.
Oh, okay.
He was very, waxing and waning. He just kind of do whatever he wanted. So, because somebody in chat was like, "Oh, wasn't that weird?" And I was like, "Oh, whatever." That's what Smith did before. I always thought Smith was great in 1, and then 2 and 3, he became a little more just wishy-washy. But that's okay. So.
Here's a theory. Maybe Smith in this movie is the representation of the need to like insert action and stuff, because he just shows up and he's like, hey, it's time to fight. And before he realizes he's Smith, he's kind of that force in the context of Tom Anderson's life. He's the guy that's like, hey, guess what, we're making Matrix 4, buddy. You cool with that? You good? Because we're doing it, so get used to the idea. So yeah, maybe that's part of it. Again, maybe Smith now just represents the things that Lana Wachowski doesn't like about the creative process and working with big studios.
That's really interesting. Well, you touched on another important point that I've seen a lot of people say is that Lana Wachowski's talking about transition, specifically their transition in this movie, which I believe also can be an allegory. I don't know if it's necessarily the Lana Wachowski's allegory, but I have seen people say that it is. And in Resurrections, yeah. And like I was like, huh, like okay, like that was, and again, something I don't know anything about, so sort of relying on what people are just sort of saying throughout the internet. And I was like, okay, I could see parts of this film acting as an allegory for that specifically, but I don't actually know that. And I wasn't sure if you had thought about that at all.
I mean, I thought about it. I don't know that the movie, at large is specifically about that, but I think the themes of like the fact that Tom Anderson and Tiffany don't look like what they know they are. They don't look like their soul. But they didn't know that. And actually, there's a really amazing scene if you watch it a second time, knowing that they don't look like what they look like, where Tiffany talks about asking Chad to look at the Matrix video game. And she's like, doesn't that character look like me? And Chad laughs.
Oh, yeah.
Because she doesn't look like that. But Tiffany saw Trinity and knew that was her because she saw her soul, which is actually super sweet. That somebody could connect with somebody else through a work of art like that. I think that's probably the strongest aspect of the movie that could acknowledge or talk about transitioning, is that you know what you look like and you know who you are and you know what your soul is, even if your container doesn't look like that. And you can fall in love with somebody seeing their soul, but the way their body looks doesn't matter if you know what their soul is. So it's one of those, love transcends all kind of things. But I think specifically in how it was treated in the movie, put a very concrete aspect to it.
Yeah, totally. That was something that I thought I was kind of rolling around in my head as I was watching it too. Is it could be an allegory for that, and that's cool. And I'm fine with that. Like I think it's really interesting to watch an artist work something out on a page or in a movie, or having worked it out, then turn it into, what their art is, and that's always really cool knowing where it's coming from too. I like to hear what artists think of their own art and how they've interpreted their own art. It's always fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love hearing that. A lot of people do not, but I love hearing that.
Oh, that's the thing that I found the most invigorating about Matrix 4, is that a lot of it was, Lana Wachowski basically telling her experience to the audience through Tom Anderson. What is that one line where Tom Anderson and Tiffany are talking in the coffee shop, and he references, like, the only and one of the more specific lines he has is he describes the Matrix as keeping some kids entertained. Which I thought was just like, damn, is that how they feel about how the world reacted to it? Is that like people are like, oh my god, the guns and the explosions, and the Wachowskis are just like, well, okay, yeah, I guess I'm glad some people had a good time with it. Kind of missed the bigger picture, but I don't know. I was super down with like the commentary in the movie, not only about that but the creative process. Yeah.
Yeah, I was along for the ride the whole time. This wasn't something that I was. I thought since they were following up Reloaded and Revolutions, I didn't expect much from this film. And so when I watched it, I was like, that was about what I expected. A little better. And I don't know if you were going into this with really high expectations and they were mad or what. I don't know.
I would have only been disappointed if it was a direct crowd-pleasing Matrix film. If it was just like the same hero's tale with the same like similar action sequences. Like I always like watching action, don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of stunt work and action cinematography. Like I love the John Wick movies. Absolutely adore them. So I would have been happy on some level, but I'm so much more pleased that it was instead a more sincere, original, and genuine expression. That I feel like, it gave me a lot to think about. That's what I wanted. I wanted the unexpected, I guess, and it delivered. And now the problem is I've come to expect that out of every Wachowski film, so it's going to be an issue going forward, I think. But all of their films so far have always satisfied that desire in me.
Yeah, and Saren was saying Lana's derisive response to the audience was kind of sad. She didn't have to treat us like that. And it's interesting you say that, because I can see both sides. I see your side in chat, because I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like shitting on the audience, that kind of sucks. But then I can also see her side, because if she didn't like the way it was received, I mean, like, this is something Lawrence and I talk about all the time. It's like, you can't tell people how to interpret your creation. Once you've released it in the world, that's it. But you can still talk about how it makes you feel. You can still talk about what your feelings are toward the audience receiving it in a specific way. Like you said, it's like just keeping some kids entertained. If that's not what Lana Wachowski wanted for their art, then it sucks. And she can say as much. So there's and this is the fine line with pop culture art, is that if you're making art for 1 billion people, then you do actually have to think about the audience a little bit.
Well, I guess that's the crux of it, though, Bruce. I don't think Matrix 2 and 3 are pop culture art. They are art. It's fine art, actually. It's a movie that exists to say something without really a whole lot of acknowledgement about how the audience will react. And that was Matrix 4. And honestly, I think one of the bigger virtues of 4 is maybe making people more aware that not all art exists to entertain. It isn't all audience serving. Sometimes the best art is purely expressive. And you come to it because you want to know what the artist has to say, not because they are laboring to produce a fun ride for you. And for whoever said that in chat, I should acknowledge, like, this isn't a pointed response to what you said. I totally understand if you watch Matrix 4 and felt like you were being
talked down to,
derided. Yeah, it's the Last Jedi thing, except I got way more of that out of Last Jedi than I did this movie. Last Jedi seemed to have open contempt for, like, Star Wars.
It did.
Which,
it did.
Could, whatever. But I guess one of the things that bugs me, and this can even be in relation to, like, No Way Home, is that people have, by and large, and this is, I guess, just the realm of pop art, but people talk about a movie's value purely in regards to how entertained they were. Like, how good was it? Is it good? Just because that's really all you can do with a Marvel film. How good is it? But not did it do anything interesting? Did it ask any interesting questions? Did it leave you with something to chew on? Because that's not what Marvel films are for. So it bugs me sometimes when people talk about movies with the assumption that the barometer of quality is how entertained most people were. Like, did it please as many people as possible? As though that's the only mission of art, to please and entertain as many people as possible. When you do that, you only get pretty sanitized stuff. Pretty broad, non-specific stuff. So I was very glad that this movie did not do that. Or intentionally chose not to.
I completely agree with you, Lawrence. I'll counterpoint you here only because I agree with you, but then there's also a whole nother thing, which is, if this was made to be fine art and not pop art, well then Lana Wachowski doesn't need $100 million to make a movie.
Yeah. But she took it. I mean, why wouldn't you?
No, well, totally, right? Because she's earned it.
Yeah.
And
was this a $100 million movie?
No, I don't. Whatever the budget was, it was relatively high, I'm sure.
I wonder if maybe that explains some of the weirder action. Is that maybe it was a budgetary thing? They did what they could, but I don't know.
People are saying 180, 195, 200.
No shit, really?
Yeah,
oh man.
Yeah. And so this is why. If you
$190 million, holy shit.
Yeah, if you want to make a fine art movie, that's totally fine. But you're probably not going to get $195 million to make a film.
Yeah.
And when you make it at that scale, you have to please
executives.
$500 million worth of people.
Well, you don't have to. You can take the check, make a big movie, and then walk away.
You're right.
Because you'll never get funded again. That was honestly my worry after Speed Racer and fucking Jupiter Ascending. I was like, Jesus Christ, they're never going to get to make a high budget movie ever again. And I would still watch whatever they make, but I was like, man, they are not bankable names anymore. And somehow they keep getting funded. God bless. So you're right though, Bruce. Yeah, that is
people
the system.
People care. Well, and that's what pop art is, right? That's why MCU is working. The box office is currently 106 million. Well, that's domestic, right? That's got to be only domestic.
Also, it was HBO Max day
Max.
one, yeah. So
Yeah,
who knows?
HBO Max. That'll make its money back. I think maybe.
I don't know, Bruce.
They spent a lot of money on marketing, I'm sure. But
It
yeah,
wouldn't surprise
Lawrence,
me if this movie lost money.
Lawrence, as a completely selfish venture, meaning somebody came to Lana Wachowski was like, "Hey, you want to write a movie? It doesn't matter what it's about, but it has to be The Matrix." And she was like, "How much do I get? 180 million? There you go. Yeah, let's do it." You know, like, so it's interesting because who knows if Lana Wachowski was like, "I would like to make 3 more Matrixes," or if she was like, "Fuck it, I'll just do this one."
Well, the movie seemed to say specifically that Warner was going to make one regardless, so she decided she might as well be involved, which is awesome. Yeah, because she made like a crazy art film instead of a crowd-pleasing, like servile film that just tried to like one up all the things people liked about the originals.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, it's 106 million worldwide. Bad news. That's sort of that's the system that we're in, which sucks. And the truth of the matter is we get some really good stuff. Like I like Lawrence that you liked this because you're right. They took a lot of risks, and I was excited to see them take risks rather than rehash like Force Awakens. Right? I was excited to see that because I'd like to see something new because then I might get something new out of it and I might enjoy it. Unfortunately, this was not the fucking home run, but it's kind of, you don't generally write 2 home runs in your career. Like you don't write 2 Matrixes, right? So I had low expectations for the film. And if I were Lana Wachowski and they came to me and said, "Hey, write whatever script you'd like," I would have been like, "You bet, I'll do it." Because she doesn't need to please audiences anymore. And this is something I've talked a lot about with albums. People like musicians writing albums where they have like a breakout album that's huge. And then the next album, they're like, "We're going to produce the entire thing ourselves." And it's shit. And then they write it, they release it, and everyone goes, "Boy, that first album was great, but this second album's trash." It turns out it's because, well, you needed a lot more creatives around that group of creatives to make something great. Because they were looking to make the best possible product, in quotes, best possible product for the largest audience. And so maybe that's why the second album wasn't as good. So it's kind of the same thing here. Is this Lana Wachowski's not gonna hit another home run because she doesn't have to. And the Matrix, maybe she felt a little more pressure to. Maybe she had a few producers or executives being like, "But it's also got to be really fucking cool." And she was like, "Okay, cool, yeah, I could do that." And then this time around, not as much, which is okay, by the way, no big deal.
Yeah, maybe. That's the tricky thing is you never know an artist's motivations really. So sometimes it can be tough to judge the success of a creative work. Like if a creative work was trying to be popular and it's not, then it failed, right? But if an artist just had something to express and they expressed their vision as fully and completely as they wanted to, without regard for public or popular opinion, then it was a successful work of art on those terms. So it almost reminds me of like David Lynch. David Lynch whoopsied and like got popular because he kind of tripped into his zeitgeist. But he was never, ever the kind of director or writer that wanted to make film for everyone. He had a vision, and if somebody was going to pay him to make it, that's great. And however it worked out on the tail end doesn't matter, because his vision was the thing that you saw. And it resonated with people sometimes, and then it didn't others. But he'll take whatever budget you can give him, and he'll make his own thing. And to some degree, I feel like that's kind of the same thing as sometimes artists who put their vision into the world luck out, if you can consider it luck. Some artists wouldn't. That it actually does blow up into popular appeal. And then that's when you have to deal with your art and your expression getting appropriated and misinterpreted and taken by people. And, you know, a lot of that is obviously in Matrix 4. So I felt for a long time that, and I think it's pretty clear from watching their films, that the Wachowskis, if they get budget, they make their vision. And if that happens to appeal to audiences, that's fine. But that's not their first goal. I feel like their first goal is expression. And maybe this is just an age thing, but I'm definitely getting to the age where I'd rather see expression than someone try their hardest to make me happy.
Yeah. That makes sense. And I thought she succeeded. Actually, I can say this. I thought she succeeded as much as I thought Rian Johnson succeeded with Last Jedi. Because Last Jedi succeeded in subverting my expectations, just like The Matrix Resurrections did. And I liked both of them about the same, which was like, okay. And I walked out and said, yeah, sure. And then I kind of never thought about it again. So neat that they got to express themselves, but didn't vibe with me as much as, but I didn't expect it to vibe with me as much as the original Matrix. It's okay. That's no big deal. That's a once in a lifetime thing. So, and that's another thing too. I'm really apologetic when it comes to that kind of stuff too. It's like, whatever, like I didn't hate it. This wasn't trash, but it was fun. And I like for all the stuff that you talked about. I liked that in the Matrix. I thought it was cool. The stuff that she was trying to do was neat. And I appreciate it there. She was like, like throwing in some stuff that you're like, oh, well, maybe it wasn't like this. And I was like, okay, cool. All right. Yeah. All right. I'm with you. It was the same with Last Jedi. It's like over and over and over. It's like, yeah, all right, Rian Johnson, I'm with you. Let's go. And in Rise of Skywalker, I was not.
Well, that's what Rise of Skywalker is crazy because it followed in basically an art piece, an art film. If in the context of this conversation, an art film is one that exists for expression and not for audience satisfaction. It tried to like flip-flop. It went from an art piece that subverts expectations and expresses its own thing to going back to try to pleasing people. That is such a weird thing. Man, I don't know that that's ever happened before. But Matrix 4 has made me think about Last Jedi a lot. I don't know why, because I reacted pretty negatively to Last Jedi. And in all the same ways I should have reacted negatively to Matrix 4. I think what it was is I never once expected, requested, or like Star Wars was never that. Star Wars was never highfalutin, philosophical, anything. So I guess in this regard, it feels a little more appropriate given that there was a lot of that in Matrix 2 and 3 for it to continue on in its own way in 4. Right. But yeah, I can definitely see why somebody would feel condescended to, talked down to, all those things.
That's a really good point. It's something I hadn't thought about until I was reading the chat, and people were saying that, and I was like, "Gosh, that's a great point." Because if people really liked Bullet Time and Matrix, because I did, if they really liked it, and then Lana Wachowski was like, "No, it wasn't about that," then I guess you'd be like, "What the fuck, dude?" Like, I don't understand. You put it in the movie.
Yeah, can it be about both?
Yeah,
Why can't it be about both?
Thank you, Lawrence. That's what I was heading towards. It can be about both, and that's what I love. That's why I love Star Wars. That's why I love MCU. It can be about all the things. It's really hard to do. Making pop culture art is really fucking hard to make everybody love it, but also tell a story and have morals, and that's probably the hardest thing in the world to do. But it can do it, and it's really hard. And I think some artists go the David Lynch way, where it's just like, fuck it, I can do whatever I want. And then if you get something out of it, great. Mm-hmm. And then some artists go the J.J. Abrams way, where they're like, oh, I want to please everybody, and then they blow it. But there's a middle ground that doesn't happen very often, but when it hits, it is just otherworldly. It's perfection. And I thought the first Matrix did that. And that's really hard to do. So sometimes it's an accident, other times it's on purpose, but it's very hard to do. And that's okay if you can't do it every time.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's the magic intersection where an artist's genuine expression does capture the heart of the masses. and it does wake people up, to borrow the operative phrase from the movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like a once every 20 years kind of thing.
Yeah.
Star Wars
really
was that.
hard.
Matrix was kind of new Star Wars. Well, Matrix 1 anyway.
Yeah, it absolutely was. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I liked the movie the first time I watched it, but I felt a little raw that it seemed so cynical about the legacy of the Matrix, because you have all these douche bros talking about how much it meant to them, and really what that means is they thought all the shooting was super cool. I was like, well, I mean, come on, there was more going on there. What I realized is when you escape the Matrix in that movie, suddenly it becomes so much more positive. They go to Io and they're growing strawberries, and humans and machines are living together. So I think the movie was acknowledging that in the Matrix, where people really like bland, like air quotes, normal lives. They like going to their shitty jobs every day. They love experiencing art on the most surface levels. That's where everything is super cynical. No one got the Matrix there. But out in the real world, the Matrix actually led to a wonderful explosion of things. I thought there was a really fun sort of dichotomy between, there's that scene where the douche bro is telling Tom Anderson how much he loved the Matrix when they were cheersing coffees and stuff like that. And then there's a scene later where a character is telling Trinity how much she meant to her and how cool she was and how that made her feel like brave and stuff. But that was in the real world. So I really appreciated how in the Matrix, everything is cynical and surface level and stupid. Outside the Matrix, everything is real and compassionate and constructive.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so to me, that sets up kind of a new meaning for the Matrix in context of the story. It just now represents living shallowly, I guess. So I thought that was neat. I like that a lot.
All right. I absolutely take your meaning, and I got that meaning as well. That's a great way to put it. So, well, that was it. I was just curious to ask you about these movies because I hadn't been able to talk about them with anybody. So
yeah, I mean I talked about it with Steph quite a bit, but I could hear people's opinions on Matrix 4 for a long time, because it's one of those where not only did watching it like give me a lot to think about, but I'm gonna learn, like, I can't wait to learn more about people from how they react to that movie too, positive and negative. I think everything's equally valid.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's fun to hear chat as well. That's always going to give different points of view that I had not thought about before. So that's great. Cool. Thanks, Lawrence. I appreciate it.
Oh, not at all, man. I love talking about this stuff. I mean, Bruce, you specifically, you can approach movies on such a non-pretentious, non-judgmental level, and that makes you so good to talk about movies with, because you always find the good in largely try to find the good in most things.
I really do. That's why I went and saw Venom 2, because I was like, maybe there's something, and there wasn't. But
really? I haven't seen Venom 2 yet. I'm going to, but
you should just get really wasted and watch both Venoms. They're really stupid. And obviously, yeah, they're dumb fun for dumb fun's sake. So I'm not saying that they're they're bad movies. Well, go watch them. But it's just like they're not my dumb fun, right? Then that's okay. So yeah, I usually try. I think that's why I like, and I've thought a lot about this too. The way I consume media is I watch it, I catalog the way I feel about it when I leave, and then generally do not go back and think about it until I've started talking to someone. So then I have to start recalling how I felt at specific instances within the media. And what I should be doing is probably more like sitting down and like writing down my thoughts when I'm watching them. Because I don't do that. I just let myself feel as I'm watching. And very rarely do I analyze my feelings until afterwards. And even then, it's only when I talk to you or like someone else about it. And I don't usually talk about that stuff. So.
Oh man. Yeah, I guess I'm a bit different. I analyze nonstop. I analyze what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it. What do they want me to feel this way? How should I be feeling? What is the movie thinking I'm feeling right now? Am I feeling that way? Like it's just a nonstop buzz in my head when I'm watching stuff like that. So
yeah.
I'll just put this out there. It is on HBO Max. So I
Yeah,
actually
it's true.
I liked a lot of the action more the second time I watched it, because I guess I had my expectations lowered, but there's some great shots of like Bugs doing wall running and like shooting over her back. Dude, that shot of like them hucking that person out of the train is still an incredible shot.
Oh, it's
some of the
awesome.
stuff on the
It's
train
great.
is pretty cool, but
Yeah. No,
But yeah.
I agree. I totally agree with you. I think I would like to. I went and saw it in theaters with Autumn just because I was like, I would like to see this in theaters in the case that it is really bad, because then at least it'll be, I know there'll be some action in it that is theater worthy. But it was better than I thought it was, so I think I could probably sit down and watch this at home too. So.
there's one line that has captivated my imagination since I watched it. And I have a whole theory about it, but it's seriously one line. They talk about how this is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up because it's getting late. When they go to Io, they talk about how they have biosky. And then the operator talks about how it regulates and he uses an acronym. But it's the same acronym they use to describe how you look in the Matrix. Which I thought was like, wait a minute, what does that mean? Why would you say that in the real world? I think what he means is it produces UV light, which keeps you tan or not as like pale. And then I was like, oh my God. To somebody who's like grown up with the Matrix as a thing, the way you look in the mirror isn't you. That's just a thing. It doesn't matter. And that terminology carries over to the real world in a very concrete way. And I thought that was so awesome that somebody in that universe would just throw that term out to describe how you look. It's not just your digital representation. SRI, that was the one, thank you. Yeah, he says, it regulates your SRI, and it's such a throwaway line. I was like, what? Why did he use that to talk about how you actually look in the real world? And then I realized it's because it's just as fake to who you are as how you look in the Matrix. And I was like, wow, that's so cool that it was used in that way.
Cool. That is really cool that the writers thought about that. Because I remember that line, actually. It's funny because they say it and the acronym just goes right on by. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And I just let it go.
It sounds like technobabble, but it actually has a lot of meaning, weirdly. At least as I've been thinking about it. I could be wrong. I feel like sometimes I'm way too apologetic to this movie. But
No. But that's super valid. Like I said, I let that line just fly on by because I was like, I don't know what that shit means. But I remember it specifically because they were like trying to explain the biosky, and I was like, well, I guess at least they tried. But now that you add that meaning to it, it makes a lot more sense. So. Cool. Yeah, well, have a good night, man. Thanks again.
You too. Yeah. Good. Always good talking movies with you.
Yeah, that was fun. That was I just there had been some big releases that I had not been able to talk to anybody about, and I was like, let's do it. So.
All right, man. Well, we'll have to compare notes about big releases soon. I haven't seen Malignant yet. People have pretty strong reactions to that.
I haven't seen it either. I had no interest in it, so
I love James Wan. So wait, that was James Wan, or is that the other one? I feel bad comparing them like that.
I'm not sure. But yeah, that I had literally no interest in Malignant at all. But I've heard that it, for some reason, people keep asking about it. They keep like, what do you think of it? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't even seen it. And so for some reason, it's people keep wanting to know what other people are thinking about it. I need to see Ghostbusters. I haven't seen Ghostbusters yet. So
I don't want to. From the sounds of it, it doesn't do anything. It's just kind of fan service, audience service.
Oh, that sounds about right.
Well, I mean, Ghostbusters has always been that, so whatever.
I mean, I've been saying Ghostbusters 2 is a bad movie for as long as I've known about it and seen it.
Ghostbusters just perplexes me. It was one kind of good movie, and somehow it's a whole property. Yeah. I guess it's like Jurassic Park. It's like one pretty good movie, and millions of terrible ones, and somehow. Anyway, whatever. I'm gonna stop talking. All right, Bruce.
All right, I'll talk to you later, man.
Yeah, see ya. Have a good night.
Bye.
All right. And a good game. That's true. I guess the Jurassic Park games have a better batting average than the movies. What's wrong with fan service? I mean, don't you want to have fun and enjoy movies? I don't mind fan service as long as it doesn't condescend. That's a really good question. There's nothing wrong with it, I guess. But it doesn't. I guess it just doesn't work on me anymore. I don't know what fan service for me would even be. I guess like John Wick 3 level action is fan service. It's just like straightforward, audience pleasing, well choreographed, well framed stuff. Anyway, okay, cool. Thank you guys very much. I didn't expect us to chat for 3 hours. Holy cow! But man, Bruce is just so good to talk to, and he's a great interviewer. Okay, thank you all very much for watching. That'll do it for me today. Let me see what's going on tomorrow. Let me see what's going on tomorrow. Get my mouse back. What do I have going on tomorrow? Oh yeah, well I'm doing a thing in the morning, but then I am going to be doing media share. So, you guys put a few dollars in the jukebox, we can all watch internet videos together. Ideally, that's going to start in the early afternoon, but that's the plan. So, you guys want to show up, watch some music videos, watch some memes? It's usually where it goes. And I don't want to brag, but you guys in chat have really good taste. So, I'm looking forward to it. All right, I'll see you then, or maybe not. Have a good night, everyone, and thanks again for watching.